I would like to request Jayashree Sawant to kindly escort our chief guest and our main lecturer for today. Our chief guest is Dr. Sucheta Taibile Sapekar, and our lecturer for today is Sushruti Santanu. So to ensure that we begin this series on the right note, we offer our obeisance to Shahaji-Raga-Lakshnam II, for whose legacy we are gathered here today. I am also happy to report that we are live on YouTube, so we also have a global audience listening in with us. We have friends who have joined us from Delhi, Bangalore, Thanjavur, Kolar, Davangere, Hyderabad, Vijayawada, Chennai, Dubai, America, and South Africa. This is the first of an interdisciplinary lecture series that is happening in Pune. So we are very grateful to have our chief guest and our lecturer here with us. Welcome one and all. My name is J.Mohite and I will be your host for the day. Nirmala Mohite Foundation is very pleased to be here with you and with our international audience as well. This is the first edition of the Krishna Kaveri Samvad, where they are also inaugurating the very first lecture series under the name Jaivantrao Mohite Memorial Lecture Series with an esteemed audience like yourself. This foundation is engaged in activities that involve rural education, publishing, research, extending resources to students and individuals as well as rural schools to empower young and curious minds to learn our true history. Today's program is the first of many to come in the interdisciplinary field in Pune, where the foundation aims to bring renowned historians, researchers, artists from various fields, writers, and many more to present their study for an audience so that as a community and as a nation, we can learn the true characteristic of our past. When you received the invitation for today's lecture, something must have struck a chord within you because the name is Krishna Kaveri Samvad. So Krishna and Kaveri are rivers that we know of, and Samvad is dialogue. So when you think about it, if these two rivers were to speak to one another, what would they say? So the Krishna River finds its origins in the Sahyadri Mountains, whereas the Kaveri River finds its origins deep in Karnataka, and it meets the Bay of Bengal in Tamil Nadu, through Tamil Nadu. So the region that is between these two rivers is of paramount importance for our nation and for our Maratha history as well. If they were to speak of what they have witnessed, they would maybe mention the two empires that have flourished even before the Maratha Empire emerged, which were mainly the Chola dynasty and the Vijayanagar Empire. They would talk about how they witnessed the dawn of the Maratha Empire with the birth, conquests, missions, and coronation of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and Chhatrapati Vyankoji Maharaj, whose forces sealed the south from all invading forces. They would also discuss with great enthusiasm the strategic mission of Dakshin Digvijay, which changed the history of our nation. And they would also talk about maybe the siege of Jinji, which was successfully fought off by Raja Ram Maharaj and Queen Tarabai, which took 8 years for the Mughals to succeed. And just so you know, this is the longest recorded siege in the history of Asia and the second longest siege in the history of the world. So this is the might and character of the Maratha Empire. As rulers, the Bhonsles protected the pillars of society not just in Maharashtra but also in the south of India, where all of the elements that are integral to our identity were preserved. So that includes literature, that includes our cultural and religious traditions, and that includes our feeling of togetherness. So these things were upheld and preserved for almost 2 centuries under the Maratha rule. On stage today, we have our Managing Committee President Jayashree Sawant and Committee Member Anjali Bhonsle, along with today's program convener Vikram Mohite. Our chief guest, Dr. Sucheta Tai, brings with her valuable experience and unparalleled contribution in the fields of Bharatnatyam. Her presence alone today is a privilege for us all. So, ma'am, thank you so much for coming. Sushruti Santanam, our speaker today, brings with her a unique blend of tradition and first-hand experience of Carnatic vocal paramparas. Her guru and mother, Vidushi R. Vedavalli, is a renowned Carnatic vocalist of national repute. Today's topic is Krishna Kaveri Samvad, a Chola-Maratha musical heritage talk and demonstration by Sushruti Santanam. I would like to request the Foundation's President, Jayashree Sawant, to felicitate both the guests. We have with us the senior most historian and researcher Pandurang Balgaudeji. We have Dr. Chaitanya Kunte, the founder and director of Dr. Ashok Da Ranade Archives and representing Maharashtra Cultural Center.
Thank you.
We have a lot of eminent personalities in our audience as well today who believe in preserving and taking our unique heritage forward through their work, be it heritage tours, classical dance performances, writing, publication, compositions, and journalism as well. So the Foundation is grateful for your presence here today, and I know there are many more guests who are with us whose names I might have missed. Kindly forgive me, since I have also been tasked with making sure that the program runs on schedule. I will continue. So this lecture series has been named in the memory of late Jaivantrao Dinkar Rao Mohite, who was an active social worker and a keen history enthusiast who guided many individuals and institutions to flourish. To get to know him better, I would like to invite to the podium Jayashree Sawant to introduce him. This program today will be in English as well as in Marathi. So right now, the president of the foundation will be addressing you in Marathi, and then we will continue on in English.
Hello. Thank you, Radhika. Good morning and very warm welcome to all of you. तळबीड सातारा जिल्ह्यातील एक प्राचीन खेडेगाव. स्वातंत्र्याआधी एका प्रतिष्ठित कुटुंबात जन्मलेला हा मुलगा, ज्याच्या घरामध्ये 17 पिढ्यांचा लिखित अलौकिक लष्करी इतिहास होता. परंतु गाव दुष्काळी आणि कौटुंबिक आर्थिक परिस्थिती पण अगदी बेताचीच होती. गावामध्ये 5वी पर्यंतच शिकण्याची सोय व गावातील कोणी व्यक्ती साधा ग्रॅज्युएटही झालेला नव्हता. अशा पार्श्वभूमीवर त्यांचे वडील कॅप्टन दिनकरराव यांनी दुसऱ्या महायुद्धात उत्तर आफ्रिकेमध्ये हिटलरच्या नाझी सैन्याबरोबर लढत आणि जर्मनीमध्ये युद्धकैदी असताना इसवी सन 1942 मध्ये एक 4 शब्दांचं पत्र लिहिलं. त्यामध्ये त्यांनी लिहिलं होतं, बापूसाहेबास ताईंकडे शिकण्यास पाठवावे. जर्मनीमध्ये युद्धकैदी असलेल्या जागृत वडिलांच्या या 4 शब्दामुळे या मुलाचे आणि कुटुंबाचे आयुष्य बदलले. आजोबांनी 10 वर्षाच्या बापूसाहेब म्हणजे जयवंतराव मोहिते यांचा बेड बिस्तारा बांधून तासगाव सांगली येथे आपल्या मुलीकडे शिकायला कायमची रवानगी केली. त्यानंतर तासगाव येथे शाळा, सांगली येथे वेलिंग्टन कॉलेज, पुण्यातील सप महाविद्यालय असा प्रवास करत करत आणि महात्मा गांधी, वीर सावरकर, यशवंतराव चव्हाण अशा दिग्गज नेत्यांकडून प्रेरणा घेत बापूसाहेब म्हणजे जयवंतराव लहानाचे मोठे झाले. शिक्षणामध्ये भौतिकशास्त्र या विषयामध्ये त्यांची विशेष आवड. त्यामुळे BScच्या परीक्षेत डिस्टिंक्शन मिळवून तसेच पुण्यामध्ये NCC कॅडेट ॲडज्युटंट या पदावर जाऊन ते गावातील पहिले ग्रॅज्युएट म्हणून उत्तीर्ण झाले. साहजिकच कौटुंबिक पार्श्वभूमी असल्याकारणाने सैन्यामध्ये त्यांनी भरती व्हायचे ठरवले आणि बँगलोर येथे स्पर्धा परीक्षेत उत्तम गुणांनी पास होऊन त्यांची निवड इन्फंट्रीमध्ये झाली. परंतु वडिलांनी पुन्हा एकदा त्यांना मार्गदर्शन केले की आता भारताला स्वातंत्र्य मिळाले आहे, त्यामुळे यापुढे आपण देशासाठी सैन्यात भरती होऊनच सेवा केली पाहिजे असं नाही, तर इतर नवनवीन क्षेत्रातील संधी निवडावी आणि देशसेवा करावी. त्याप्रमाणे दुसरे माहीत असलेले क्षेत्र म्हणजे शेती संलग्न व्यवसाय करण्यासाठी एका प्रतिष्ठित कंपनीमध्ये त्यांनी नोकरी पत्करली. त्यामुळे त्यांना भारतभर भरपूर प्रवास आणि समाजभिमुख काम करण्याची संधी मिळाली. त्या क्षेत्रात त्यांनी काही महत्त्वाच्या धोरणात्मक जबाबदाऱ्या पार पाडत असताना मोठ्या प्रमाणात मूलभूत कामं करून भारतातील शेतकऱ्यांचा आर्थिक स्तर सुधारण्यासाठी प्रचंड मेहनत घेतली व त्यांना त्यामध्ये यश पण आले. त्याबद्दल त्यांना अनेक पुरस्कारांनी सन्मानित करण्यात आले. इतिहास, संस्कृती, देशाची एकात्मता, विविधता हे विषय त्यांना नेहमीच आकर्षित करत. त्यामुळे त्यांचा इतिहास संकलन समितीचे अध्यक्ष, डेक्कन कॉलेजचे ट्रस्टी म्हणून अनेक संस्थांशी अतिशय जवळचा संबंध राहिला. ते नॅशनल सोसायटी ऑफ क्लीन सिटीचे संस्थापक सदस्य व महाराष्ट्र लोकसेवेचे अध्यक्ष पण होते. तरुण मुले व्यसनाधीनकडे वळू नयेत याकरता व्यसनमुक्ती आंदोलन त्यांनी सामाजिक स्तरावर हिरिरीने भाग घेतला आणि महाराष्ट्र पिंजून काढला. वैयक्तिक आध्यात्मिक प्रगती, समष्टी तसेच देशसेवा करत याकरता त्यांनी सतत प्रयत्न केले. भगवद्गीतावर त्यांनी एका प्रामाणिक विद्यार्थ्याप्रमाणे सारखा सखोल अभ्यास केला. चिंतन मनन करत नवीन दृष्टी प्राप्त केली. देशसेवा, उदात्त विचार आणि ध्येय समोर ठेवण्यासाठी ते मुलांना सतत मार्गदर्शन करत स्वतःच्या आयुष्यात शेवटपर्यंत त्यांनी अभ्यास, वाचन, मनन, चिंतन आणि लेखन चालू ठेवले. आपण ज्या गावात राहतो तेथे स्वच्छता, सामाजिक सौहार्दता, नागरिक आणि महानगरपालिका यांचा समन्वय राहावा यासाठी त्यांनी खूप कष्ट घेतले व ते अनेक सामाजिक संस्थांशी संस्थापक, अध्यक्ष, सदस्य या अनुषंगाने घनिष्ठपणे निगडीत होते. खेडेगावातून आलेला हा मुलगा स्वकष्टाने शिस्तीने व अतिशय मेहनत करून पुढे आला. पुण्यात कॉलेजमध्ये असताना वार लावून ते जेवत. ग्रामीण भागातील मुलांसाठी शिक्षणाचे महत्त्व त्यांनी ओळखले होते. आपल्या तळपीड गावामध्ये 5वीच्या पुढे शाळा नव्हती. त्यामुळे मुलांचे फार हाल व्हायचे व शिक्षणापासून ते वंचित राहायचे. त्यामुळे स्वतःचा राहता वाडा विना अनुदान त्यांनी एका संस्थेला देऊन गावामध्ये प्रथम शाळा सुरू केली. त्याला त्यांच्या कुटुंबियांनी पण साथ दिली. आता ती शाळा अतिशय चांगल्या नावारूपाला आलेली आहे, याचे आम्हाला समाधान वाटते. त्यांच्या कुटुंबाचा आणि शाळेचा घनिष्ठ संबंध आहे. तसेच आर्थिक मदतीबरोबरच आणि विद्यार्थी आणि शिक्षकांसाठी अनेक उपक्रम कुटुंबातर्फे निर्मला फाउंडेशनच्या माध्यमातून राबवण्यात येतात. कै जयवंतराव मोहिते महाराष्ट्रातील अनेक संस्थांना इतिहास अभ्यासक आणि होतकरू मुलामुलींना मार्गदर्शन करत असत व ते त्यांचे महत्त्वाचे आधारस्तंभही होते. लोक आजही त्यांची प्रकर्षाने आठवण काढत असतात आणि त्यांचा आम्हाला अनेकदा अनुभव येतो. अशा व्यापक व्यक्तिमत्व असलेल्या कै जयवंतराव मोहिते यांच्या नावाने दरवर्षी स्मृती व्याख्यान सुरू करत असताना आम्हाला अतिशय आनंद होत आहे. भारतीय इतिहास आणि संस्कृतीचे ते गाढे चिंतनशील अभ्यासक होते. त्या अनुषंगाने काही अपरिचित किंवा अडगळीत पडलेले पण अतिशय जिव्हाळ्याचे विषय हाती घेऊन त्यांच्या नावाने स्मृती व्याख्यानमाला आपण सुरू करत आहोत. त्यासाठी आपण सर्वजण इथे आलात त्याबद्दल मनापासून धन्यवाद.
Thank you so much. All right. So to give you the real context of what exactly happened in the region between Krishna and Kaveri rivers, I would like to invite our convener Vikramsiya Mohite to brief you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for coming on a Sunday morning. Chief guest Dr. Suchita Bede Chapekar, Speaker Sushruti Santanam, our Foundation President Jayashree Sawant, Committee Member Anjali Bhonsle, and all the distinguished guests present here as well as online. I welcome you all for the first Krishna Kaveri Samvad 2025. There is so much that has happened in the past 1000 years in this region between and around these two rivers that it cannot be overlooked. It was Chola, then Vijayanagara, and later Maratha Empire, as Radhika mentioned, from this region, which have left significant mark on the history that has helped what India is today. It is perceived that Maratha history is limited to Marathas and Maharashtra, is it not? So let me get two facts in front of you today, at the beginning itself. Number one is the Bhonsle family, the Shahaji-Bhonsle family, cumulatively have spent more than 200 years since 1600th century, more than 200 years in South alone. So it's a considerable commitment from a family which was a ruling class to be focused on a particular geography. The second, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, when he was alive till 1680, 1/3 of the number of forts and half of the geographical territory of Hindavi Swarajya was south of Maharashtra between Krishna and Kaveri. Many of us, we don't realize this, but this is absolutely factual. Details we can discuss at a later date, but these are the true facts. It all began between 1630 and 36 AD which we know unfortunately as the Shahjahan period, but visionary Shahaji-Raje Bhonsle, father of Shivaji and Venkoji, who alone took on the might of Turk, Mughal emperor, as well as Adil Shahi rule at that time. He gave them formidable challenge. Ultimately, he had to enter into a treaty with them. As per this treaty, he chose to move his family base to Bijapur and later to his Jagir in Bengaluru, where he finally settled after 1636 AD. He was a true, powerful Kshatriya commander and conducted himself like a king. He himself was a scholar and had 35 permanent and approximately 30 to 35 visiting pandits from Kashmir to Kanyakumari in his court. They all used to engage with each other and debated in 12 different languages, including Sanskrit. And Shahaji Maharaj used to participate wholeheartedly in various languages as well. Tukabai, Shahaji Maharaj's second wife, mother of Venkoji, was from Mohite family of Satara in Maharashtra. She was a pious lady and had spiritual bent of mind that eventually reflected in the successive generations. So the base is the grand old mother. Tukabai continued to live in Bengaluru with Shahaji Maharaj, where Venkoji was educated and learned the state affairs, battle tactics, economics, state politics, most importantly, different South Indian languages to a great extent. He was a brilliant student and became a scholar as well as an able military commander. Tukabai played a crucial role in upbringing Venkoji as well as other siblings while based in South. Shahaji Maharaj continued to be associated with Adil Shahi regime and expanded its rule in southern India with a firm grip over it. He was known to be a just ruler, hence the local Nayak kings looked at him as a great support. They cooperated and consulted him regularly. He treated them well and protected them whenever needed. He resolved many disputes amongst them as well. Hence, he commanded a respectable position not only in Adil Shahi court but also amongst the local rulers. For 28 long years, Shahaji Maharaj lived in South until his death, that was in 1664 AD. His South Indian Jagir included Bengaluru, Kolar, Hoskote, Dodballapur, Shire, Devanahalli, etc. His memorial, even today, is also situated at Hodegiri in district Davangere. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and Venkoji Raje were educated directly under the care and supervision of their father, Shahaji Maharaj, while they were in Bengaluru till 1642. Venkoji Raje continued to stay and operate in South India, while, as we know, during 1642, Shivaji Maharaj, at the age of 12, moved to Pune to manage the Jahagir there, with a clear vision to establish Swaraj. Why do we say that? Because Shahaji Maharaj supported him by deputing along with him a council of ministers, funds, and most importantly, the military troops, flag, and a royal seal at a very young age, you can imagine, to execute their plan. Accordingly, Shivaji Maharaj went on to establish a strong Maratha empire, as we all know. Now, coming back to South, on the other hand, Thanjavur Nayaka kingdom was established around 1532 AD by Sevappa Nayaka and was part of Vijayanagar Empire. After the famous Battle of Talikota during 1565 AD, Thanjavur and Madurai became independent. These two had traditional enmity, finally resulting into capture of Thanjavur in 1675 by Alagiri, a general of Chola-Maratha Nayaka of Madurai. Little later, upon request from Thanjavur Nayak family, Venkoji by that time a strong general, defeated Madurai Nayaka and conquered Thanjavur, and by 1676 AD became the sovereign ruler of Chola Desha. A strong art, music, dance, religious and literary activities always flourished in Thanjavur kingdom due to the patronage of local rulers. There was no exception during Maratha rule as well. Just think of this. A Venkoji, a boy born in Maharashtra, educated in Bangalore, ruled Thanjavur, where the local people were Tamil and the court official language was Telugu. What an amazing, national integration story. He and his descendants were well accepted kings as rulers of Thanjavur. They adopted the local culture, language most importantly, with fluency and achieved great mastery over it. The Thanjavur Bhonsle Maratha clan, with 8 kings in succession, ruled for 180 years with grace and utmost commitment. They uplifted and adopted local language, culture, tradition, dress, food, customs, and religious practices as well. They actually added value, promoted it to the next level. An excellent example of national integration, as I said, and a role model regime, we can say. Earlier, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had coronated himself in 1674, as we know, as an independent sovereign king, while the Turk Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb was still in power. Shivaji Maharaj never ignored South India. In fact, in 1676, he flagged off the biggest diplomatic and military expedition of his life. South of Maharashtra, which was called Dakshina Digvijay, as mentioned by Radhika. This was between Krishna and Kaveri Samvad. So now you will know why we have named it Krishna Kaveri Samvad, because there is so much that has happened. This campaign was conceived by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and flawlessly executed by his commander-in-chief Hambirao Mohite. This was a 2-year campaign. Local Nayak kings, commanders from Karnataka and Tamil region also. So when I mention Karnataka here, the parts of Andhra Pradesh also are included, because that time the south was called as Karnataka, even Tamil land was called as Karnataka, but here please read as Andhra as well, major parts of Andhra as well. The Marathas captured vast territory, key strategic forts and military, administrative and supply chain regional headquarters of Koppal, Vellore and Jinji, which were brought under their control, creating a strategic depth of almost 1,200 kilometers. Shivaji Maharaj personally was on this campaign of Dakshin Digvijay for 10 long months away from Raigad, away from Maharashtra. And he totally traveled approximately 3,500 kilometers during this campaign. The campaign went on for 2 years, which was concluded by Hambirao. The campaign was so successful that about 120 forts with adjoining geography of Maratha Empire was based outside Maharashtra, as I said earlier, in the south between Krishna and Kaveri belt, between these two rivers. This constituted 1/3 of the forts, again at the cost of repetition, 1/3 number of forts and almost 50% of geographical territory of Maratha Swaraj. We can call it empire. After death of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, Aurangzeb descended upon Deccan with a strong army of 5 lakhs. He annihilated over 150-year-old Adil Shahi and Bijapur, Adil Shahi of Bijapur and Qutub Shahi of Golconda regimes within just 2 years, between 1686 and 87. However, he could not defeat Marathas in spite of personally leading the military campaign for 26 long years. So Adil Shahi, Qutub Shahi both put together finished off in 2 years, but Marathas could not be finished off even for 26 years. Until his death, that was in 1707. He died in Maharashtra in a desperate state of mind, and financially broke condition. He had no money to pay even his soldiers for last 3 years. So, who finally defeated Emperor Aurangzeb? It was Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj and his wife Maharani Tarabai, who effectively used the strategic depth created by Shivaji Maharaj between Krishna Kaveri region that exhausted the enemy completely, militarily, financially, morally, mentally. Rajaram Maharaj at that time, what was his age? He was just 19 and Tarabai was 15. Took refuge in Jinji fort in Tamil Nadu. Aurangzeb, his senior most general Zulfikar Khan, his wazir, that is Prime Minister Asad Khan, and his Shahzada, Prince Kambaksh, and about battery of 10 to 12 generals, many of the top Turk Mughal commanders, did their best to capture them between 1691 to 1698, 7 long years, over 7 long years. However, these two young Maratha rulers defended Jinji successfully through diplomatic channels as well as military tactics. This is the longest siege, again as mentioned by Radhika, but it is worth repeating, this is the longest siege ever recorded in Indian and Asian military history and second longest in the world. Maratha General Santaji Ghorpade, Dhanaji Jadhav fought many decisive battles and dominated the Karnataka region, means again the same region, during the same period. Maharani Tarabai, who became widow at the age of 23, gave an extraordinary fight against Emperor Aurangzeb. Her outstanding display of courage to keep our motherland free has no parallel in the world history. Karnataka region between Krishna Kaveri rivers has played a pivotal role in this struggle, which we must not forget. Had it not been Jinji Fort in Tamil Nadu, which sheltered and saved the Maratha king and the queen, our country's history, and I am very certain about it, our country's history would have been totally different. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's daughter, Ambikabai, earlier during 1681, before Tarabai and Rajaram, 1681 to 89, was stationed along with her husband Shahaji-Raga-Lakshnam at Jinji for 8 long years. They both managed to retain Krishna Kaveri belt under the stronghold of Marathas. There are many such examples of Bednur and many other. People from Karnataka and Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh have all the right to feel proud of helping Marathas defeat Turk Mughals. It's a glorious history which has been wiped out of our history books and public memory at large. This is a great Indian history of sacrifice, valor and victory that took place in this Krishna Kaveri region. Venkoji Maharaj ruled Thanjavur from 1676 up to 1684-80. His eldest son, Shahaji II, that is his poster. This is probably first time it is on display. So this is Shahaji Maharaj II, that is Venkoji Maharaj's son. Deepabai, his wife, and their son. He was age 14, became the Chola Sinhasana Dipati. He was renowned as great military commander, a scholar and musicologist. He fought battles against the Turk Mughals, neighboring Madurai Nayak rules, who was always troubling them, and protected the country, culture, beautiful temples that stand today in Thanjavur region. Total 8 Maratha Bhonsle kings ruled Thanjavur for 180 years very, very successfully. As I mentioned again at the cost of repetition, combined number of years spent only by Shahaji Bhonsle family, the senior Shahaji Bhonsle family clan in South India is over 200 years. Now we know why South India remained fairly untouched by invaders after 16th century, and they had a very strong presence. Today we are going to know more about the culture contribution of Shahaji Maharaj. We only know Shahaji Maharaj as a drop in the ocean when he himself was an ocean. So this lecture, late Shri J.Mohite Memorial Lecture, is going to be delivered by Sushruti Santanam. We have these two top renowned guests who are going to speak to us today. And we are highly obliged to both of you that they have kept the tradition and the history of this great Maratha ruler alive through art and music. So they deserve a good round of applause. Hope you take back beautiful memories with you today, and thank you so much once again for coming here.
Thank you to our convener. It is my pleasure to introduce Sushruti Santanam to you today. She is a classical musician trained in Carnatic music since childhood in the rigorous Gurukula of her esteemed mother and guru, Vidushi R. Vedavalli. Her guru is widely known as a renowned and highly respected musician, adhering strictly to the sampradaya of classical Carnatic music. Her music has been described by critics as being steeped in classicism and known for an understated style rich with flavor and intensity. She broke the glass ceiling as a female performer who was exemplary in her research. She is a Sangeeta Kalanidhi, the highest peer-reviewed accolade of the Carnatic music world, a fellow of the Sangeeta Nataka Academy, and a President's awardee. Today at 90, Vedavalli Amma is one of a few Carnatic performers who has a large Gurukula consisting of accomplished and celebrated performers, researchers, writers, and teachers. As her student, Sushruti ma'am brings together three very different worlds of inquiry and practice: humanities, intensive engagement with artists and artisan communities across the country, and her insights into the world of an art practitioner. Her special focus is on the form and use of tradition in Indian knowledge systems, especially in art and crafts practices, and she holds degrees in sociology and journalism and a PhD in history, and has extensive field experience working with traditional creative communities in several parts of India. Sushruti's penchant for research took her to very unique locations that bring together history and art practices, especially music. In the year 2010, she was a part of a live production of the Pallaki Seva Prabandham Aa Gaya Nataka, or musical play, which was composed at the end of the 17th century by Shahaji-Bhonsle II, the Maratha king of Thanjavur. She began researching the Pallaki subsequent to this production and has led to both performances, presentations, and talks and publications on the subject. She founded Dakshin Dwarka Foundation, a non-profit established in 2015 that houses research in performing arts and crafts archival work, supports communities of traditional artists and artisans, and mentors younger researchers who work with traditional creative communities. So without further ado, I would like to request Sushruti ma'am to begin her lecture, and I would like to request the dignitaries on the stage to kindly take their seats in the audience. Thank you. All right, I would like to invite to the podium our chief guest for today, Dr. Sucheta Tai, who will be, oh yes, sorry. First, we will have Anjali Bhonsle introduce our chief guest for today.
थँक्यू राधिका. नमस्कार. इतिहासकार एखाद्या देशाच्या अथवा जनसमूहाच्या जीवनातील ऐतिहासिक घटनांची उपलब्ध साधनांच्या सहाय्याने सुसंगत जुळवणी करून ती लिखित स्वरूपात लोकांपुढे ठेवतात. इतिहास आणि संस्कृतीचे जतन जसे शब्दबद्ध केल्यामुळे होते, तसेच ते विभिन्न कलाविष्कारांमुळे जनसामान्यांपर्यंत पोचते. दृकश्राव्य माध्यमातून व्यक्त होणारी कला ही संगीत, नाट्य, चित्रकला, नृत्य इत्यादी माध्यमातून समाज मनाला सात्विक आनंदाची अनुभूती देत असते आणि या कलांच्या माध्यमातून समाजमूल्य जपत असते आणि ती समाजात रुजवतही असते. आजच्या आपल्या कार्यक्रमाच्या प्रमुख पाहुण्या या अशाच एक कलाकार आहेत ज्यांनी समाजामध्ये सांस्कृतिक मूल्ये रुजवण्याचे आणि जोपासण्याचे अविरत कार्य केले आहे. आदरणीय डॉक्टर सुचिता भिडे चापेकर हे नाव भारतातील भरतनाट्यम या प्राचीन आणि लोकप्रिय नृत्यशैलीतील अग्रगण्य नाव आहे. सुचिताताईंनी अनेक वर्ष त्यांच्या गुरूंच्या मार्गदर्शनाखाली कठोर परिश्रम घेऊन लहान वयातच तज्ञता संपादन केली. त्यांच्या देहबोलीतील परफेक्शन आणि भरतनाट्यम शैलीतील टेक्निकल फिनेस यामुळे त्या नेहमीच प्रेक्षकांना खिळवून ठेवण्यात यशस्वी झाल्या. गेली 5-6 दशकांपासून अनेक प्रतिष्ठित रंगमंचावर आणि उत्सवांमध्ये त्यांनी आपले नृत्य कौशल्य व कलात्मक अभिव्यक्ती प्रदर्शित केली आहे. त्या GD आर्ट, MA इन डान्स, PhD संगीताचार्य आहेत. भरतनाट्यम नृत्यशैलीमधील एक अधिकारी कलाकार, संशोधक वृत्तीचे अभ्यासक व भाष्यकार म्हणून त्यांची कीर्ती आहे. आचार्य पार्वती कुमार या आपल्या गुरूंप्रमाणेच तंजावर येथील मराठी राजांच्या नृत्य रचनांवर त्यांनी सखोल संशोधन केले. तंजावरचे परंपराग्रणी गुरु KP किट्टप्पा यांच्या मार्गदर्शनाखाली शहाजीराजांनी रचलेल्या मराठी, हिंदी, संस्कृत रचनांच्या सादरीकरणाद्वारे भरतनाट्यम नृत्यशैलीच्या रचना विभागात मौलिक भर घातली आहे. हिंदुस्थानी शास्त्रीय संगीत आणि भरतनाट्यम यांचा अप्रतिम मेळ साधून नृत्यगंगा या नवनिर्मित अभिजात नृत्यशैलीचे या कलेस त्यांनी योगदान दिले आहे. सुचिताताईंनी अनेक दशके संशोधन, शिक्षण, प्रसार या दोन्हीमधून भावी पिढ्या घडवल्या आहेत. आपले विशाल ज्ञान आणि कौशल्य त्या भावी पिढीस वाटून त्यांना सांस्कृतिकदृष्ट्या सक्षम बनवण्यात लक्ष असतात. 1988 मध्ये कलावर्धिनी प्रतिष्ठानची त्यांनी स्थापना केली. या माध्यमातून अनेक नृत्य कलाकार, रचनाकार व अध्यापक यांची जडणघडण केली. पुणे विद्यापीठात अभ्यागत प्राध्यापक, गुरु आणि PhD साठी मार्गदर्शक म्हणून त्यांनी मान्यता प्राप्त केली. अशा सुचेताताई एक बहुआयामी कलाकार आहेत ज्यांनी सादरीकरण, कोरिओग्राफी, शिक्षण, सांस्कृतिक प्रचार या सर्व गोष्टींचे बहुमूल्य योगदान या क्षेत्रात दिले आहे. आजवर त्यांना अनेक सन्मान प्राप्त झाले आहेत. त्यांनी अनेक देशांचे दौरे करून आपल्या नृत्यशैलीमुळे प्रेक्षकांची मने जिंकली आहेत. त्यांना राज्य सरकारचा महाराष्ट्र गौरव पुरस्कार प्राप्त झाला आहे. तसेच 2015 साली स्वर्गीय गुरु पंडिता रोहिणी भाटे पुरस्कार प्राप्त झाला आहे. 2007 मध्ये या क्षेत्रातील सर्वोच्च बहुमान संगीत नाटक अकादमी अवॉर्डने त्यांना सन्मानित करण्यात आले आहे. असे अनेक पुरस्कार त्यांना आजवर अनेक गेले दशकांमध्ये प्राप्त झाले आहेत. नृत्यात्मिका ह्या पुस्तकाचे लेखन आणि संपादनही त्यांनी केले आहे. त्यांच्या या प्रवासाबद्दल व विशेष करून शहाजीराजे यांनी रचलेल्या मराठी कवीच्या संशोधनाबद्दल, त्यांच्या तंजावरच्या सरस्वती महाल लायब्ररीमधल्या त्यांच्या अनुभवांबद्दल त्यांना आम्ही खरोखर उत्सुक आहोत. मी त्यांना विनंती करते की त्यांनी आपले मनोगत व्यक्त करावं.
आजच्या प्रमुख वक्त्या सुश्रुती श्री विक्रमसिंह मोहिते प्रतिष्ठानची सर्व मंडळी आणि आपण सर्व सुजाण रसिक सगळ्यांना माझं विनम्र अभिवादन. खरं म्हणजे आज मी इथे उभी आहे याचं श्रेय मी
विक्रमसिंह यांना देते. त्यांचा एक 2-3 आठवड्यापूर्वी फोन आला आणि त्या म्हटल्या सुश्रुतीताईंचं असं असं आणि शहाजी राजांचं पल्लकी सेवा प्रबंध त्याच्यावर बोलणार आहेत, गाणार आहेत. म्हटलं नक्की. आणि मी विसरून गेले होते की मी चिकनगुन्यामुळे पलंगावरच बसलेले होते. पण अगदी 15 दिवसापूर्वी पण मी त्यांना म्हटलं की तुम्ही खरंच दुसरं कोणीतरी पण बघा, आम्हाला येता येईल असं वाटत नाही. पण त्यांना एवढा विश्वास आहे, म्हणजे नाही ताई तुम्ही येणार, तुम्ही उभ्या राहणार. आणि आज मी उभी आहे तेव्हा मला इथे श्रेय पूर्णपणे प्रतिष्ठानला आहे. एक खूप चांगला उत्तम उपक्रम ते राबवत आहेत. बराच कलात्मक इतिहास त्याचा अभ्यास करताना बऱ्यापैकी सामाजिक राजकीय इतिहास पण पाहिलेला होता. पण तुकाबाई या मोहिते माहेरवाशीण होत्या हे मात्र माहीत नव्हतं. त्यांच्यापासून पुढे व्यंकोजी व त्यांचे पुत्र शहाजी आणि ही पुढची परंपरा सुरू झाली. तंजावरच्या भोसले राजांच्या मराठी साहित्य असलेल्या नृत्य संगीतासाठी लिहिलेल्या रचनांचा माझा संबंध आला. तो मी मुंबईला होते आधी आणि आचार्य पार्वती कुमार यांना मास्तर म्हणत असो. म्हणजे ही खूप 64 वगैरे सालातली गोष्ट आहे, 64-65. तर त्यांच्याकडे एक पुस्तक आलं तंजावरच्या सरस्वती महाल लायब्ररीचं पब्लिकेशन, जे तेव्हा पुण्याच्या श्रीमती रोहिणी भाटे मास्तरांकडे येत असत. भरतनाट्यमबद्दल समजून घ्यायला त्यांना सर्वच नृत्याच्या ह्याच्यात इंटरेस्ट होता. तर त्यांनी हे पुस्तक मास्तरांना दिलं. त्याचं नाव असं गमतीदार होतं, कोरव्याचे साहित्याचे जिन्नस. कोरवई हा तमिळ शब्द आहे. कोरवई म्हणजे लिंक, साखळी. साहित्य संस्कृत आणि जिन्नस हे आताच्या मला वाटतं मराठी शब्द आहे, पण आम्ही माण्याचे जिन्नस म्हणत असू. आता हा शब्द आमच्या मराठी मुलांना जिन्नस म्हणजे काय असं विचारतील. तेव्हा अशा नावाचं हे पुस्तक. आणि तेव्हा बेबीताई रोहिणीताई मास्तरांना म्हणाल्या, अहो हे बघा, याच्यात आलारू शोल्ल शब्द वर्ण अशा रचना आहेत, पण साहित्य आहे ते सगळं मराठी आहे. अहो मास्तर पार्वती कुमार त्यांचं नाव, त्यांनी घेतलेलं नाव ते खरं तर जगन्नाथ कांबळी मालवणचे. आणि त्यामुळे मराठीशी त्यांचा त्या काळात उदय शंकरणी यांच्यामुळे प्रभावित होऊन ते मुंबईला आले आणि या क्षेत्रात ते होते. त्यामुळे त्यांना खूप त्या पुस्तकात इंटरेस्ट वाटला. आणि त्यातल्या ॲक्च्युली ज्याच्यात साहित्य पण नव्हतं अशा त्यातले एक आलारू आणि शोल्ल, ज्याला आज आम्ही आलारिपो आणि जतीश्वरम असं म्हणतो, अशा 2 रचना त्यांनी मला माझं अरंगेत्रम म्हणजे जे 63 साली झालं तेव्हा शिकवल्या होत्या. आणि त्याची नोंद त्यावेळी टाइम्स ऑफ इंडियाच्या क्रिटिकने घेतली की अरे हे तंजावरचं करतायत, त्यांनी पुढे पण करावं. व्हॉटेवर त्या काळात त्यांनी त्या पुस्तकातल्या काही रचना घेऊन मला, मीच त्यांची एक करणारी अशी शिष्या होते तेव्हा, शिकवल्या. आणि त्या कुठल्या तरी मुंबईच्या ओव्हलवर एक फेस्टिवल होतं, त्याच्यात 2 रचना मी नाचल्या. एक अघटित सये शिवलीला अशी शिवस्तुती होती. या पुस्तकामध्ये सरफोजी राजांनी लिहिलेल्या रचना होत्या. तर तेव्हा पुलं मला वाटतं महाराष्ट्र साहित्य मंडळाचे, संस्कृती मंडळाचे अध्यक्ष होते. ते इतके, त्यांना इतका आनंद झाला, त्यांनी मास्तरांना ग्रँट दिली, म्हणले तुम्ही तंजावरला जा. आणि असं हे मास्तरांचं संशोधनाचं काम सुरू झालं. मी भाग्यवान की त्यांनी मला त्याच्यात संपूर्णपणे सहभागी करून घेतलं. आणि या ॲक्च्युली सरफोजी राजे आणि शहाजी हे खूपच वेगळ्या प्रकृतीचं होते. त्या सरफोजींनाही खूप अथांग वेगवेगळ्या विषयांमध्ये त्यांना इंटरेस्ट होता. ते स्वतः आय सर्जन डोळ्याची ऑपरेशन्स करत असत. ही गोष्ट मी खूप अलीकडे वाचली. पण साहित्यातही त्यांच्या ह्याच्यामध्ये इनोव्हेशन, नॉव्हेल्टी खूप आहे. त्यांनी काय केलं, 18 रचनांची अशी त्याला निरूपण म्हटलं, जे आज आम्ही भरतनाट्यममध्ये एक 8 रचनांचा त्याला मार्ग म्हणतात, तसं ते निरूपणामध्ये या सगळ्या रचना होत्या. आणि त्याला त्यांनी त्या पूर्ण 18 रचनांना एक राग एक ताल अशा सूचना होत्या. नोटेशन हे कुठेच या जुन्या हस्तलिखितांमध्ये नोटेशन करून कुठेच ठेवलेलं नाही. पण ते राग आणि ताल याच्यावरनं त्यांना एक जनार्दन पंत तंजावरकर म्हणून ऑल इंडिया रेडिओ तेव्हा वीणावादक होते, त्यांना मराठी पण यायचं, ते तंजावरचे होते, त्यांच्याकडनं त्यांनी त्या सगळ्या बांधून घेतल्या. आणि 67 साली मी हे सगळं 18 रचनांचं निरूपणाचं सादरीकरण केलेलं होतं. मास्तरांकडूनच मी ऐकलं होतं की शहाजी यांचं पण खूप, म्हणजे शहाजी दुसरे अर्थात तंजावरचे शहाजी, की त्यांचंही खूप सारं साहित्य आहे तंजावरला, ते काही त्यांना पाहायला मिळालं नव्हतं. त्यामुळे 72 साली माझे वडील मला तंजावरला प्रथम घेऊन गेले. आणि तो काळ मी म्हणेन माझ्या आयुष्यातला खूपच, त्याला काय नाही ना, रम्य भावरम्य असा काळ होता. एक वेगळंच तंजावर होतं त्या काळात. TMSSM लायब्ररी, आता सरस्वती महालायब्ररी सरफोजींनीच स्थापन केली, त्यामुळे तंजावर सरफोजी महाराजांची सरस्वती महालायब्ररी, जी भारतातली 2nd लार्जेस्ट मॅन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स लायब्ररी आहे. ते अखंड साठा या सर्वच राजांनी काही ना काही साहित्य, आपल्याला सांगितलं 8 राजांनी तिथे राज्य केलं, प्रत्येकानेच लिहिलं आहे. पण त्यातल्या त्यात सरफोजी आणि शहाजींमध्ये 100 वर्षाचा काळ आहे. आजच्या काळात जे भरतनाट्यम ज्या प्रकाराने केलं जातं त्याच्याशी त्याचा आधीचा इतिहास सरफोजींच्या रचनांमधनं कळतो. पण शहाजींच्या काळात ही अशी एक भरतनाट्यम नृत्य कार्यक्रम अशी हे झालेली नसावी, कारण त्यांच्या सर्व साहित्यांमध्ये दरू आणि पद असे 2च प्रकार आढळतात. म्हणजे हे सांगीतिक त्यांचं आहे. तर ते दरूमध्ये बोल, काही ठिकाणी स्वर आणि साहित्य असा भाग होता. आणि पद, असंख्य पद, आणि इतकी वेगळ्या वेगळ्या प्रकारची पदं होती. त्यातलं काही ताडपत्रावर तेलुगू लिपीमध्ये लिहिलं होतं. आपण ऐकलंत की हे मराठा राजे इतके त्या प्रजेचे झाले की आजही तंजावर म्हटलं की आय एम फ्रॉम तंजावर, आय एम फ्रॉम तांजूर. सो तांजूर बानी वॉज समथिंग विच इज व्हेरी स्पेशल, ज्याच्यात तमिळ आधीचे, चोल, मग नायक आणि मराठी, ऑल दीज 3 सगळ्या 3ही संस्कृती इथे एकत्र झालेल्या असा हा प्रांत. तर मी ज्या शोधले ते शहाजींचं, त्यावेळी एक विश्वनाथन म्हणून तिथे तेलुगू पंडित होते. मी राहत असे ते भीमराव, म्हणजे इथलीच मंडळी, केसकर आधीचे, ते मराठी पंडित होते. आणि मला असं वाटलं की हां मराठी पण ते मराठी इतकं वेगळं होतं की ते असं आधी कान देऊन ऐकायला लागत असे. आजही अशी मंडळी आहेत, पण त्यांच्यात दक्षिणी मराठी असं म्हणता येईल, त्याच्यात तामिळ, तेलुगू बरेच शब्द एकत्र झालेलं. म्हणजे आता ती भीमरावांची पत्नी त्या होत्या. मी पहिल्यांदी, कारण तंजावरमध्ये असं काही लॉज बीज असं त्या काळात काहीच नव्हतं. आणि मी अशी 20-22 वर्षाची पहिल्यांदी, वडील मला ऑल द वे तंजावरला पोचवायला आले होते की कुठे राहणार आहे, काय करणार, आता तुम्ही जा, मला आता TMSSM लायब्ररी मिळाली आहे, मी आता इथे बसणार. तर त्या भीमरावांच्या मी घरीच राहत असे. आणि तिथे किती तू गोमटी असा हे काढून ते गोमटी वगैरे हे शब्द जुन्या मराठीतले. पण ही सर्व जे साहित्य आहे, शहाजीसुद्धा म्हणजे सर्व भाषा त्यांना अवगत असल्यामुळे साहित्याचं मराठी मला डिसन करायला फार त्रास झाला नाही. काही काही शब्द अडायचे, त्यासाठी मग मी मुंबईला आमच्या मराठी वाचनालयाच्या बऱ्याच धोंड होते, मग धोंड बऱ्याच लोकांच्याकडे जाऊन मी त्या काही काही गोष्टी केल्या. तर त्यातली मग शहाजींचे प्रबंध आहेत, प्रबंध नाट्य आहे, यक्षगान प्रकार म्हणजे नृत्य नाट्याचा प्रकार जास्ती त्या काळात, त्या प्रकारची त्यांनी हे लिहिलेली आहे. तर एक थोडक्यात मी एक 5 मला शहाजींच्या काव्यातल्या गोष्टी ज्या विशेष वाटल्या शहाजींबद्दलच्या त्या मी सांगू इच्छिते. एक म्हणजे भाषा वैविध्य. संस्कृत त्यांचा म्हणजे आवडताच विषय होता. एक तिरुविशनल्लूर म्हणून त्या काळात ही पद्धत होती, राजे लोक गाव दान देत असत. हे कुचिपुडी जे म्हणतात ते पण कुशिलवपुरी हे नर्तकांच्या ना दान दिलेलं गाव होतं. तसं तिरुवशनल्लूरमध्ये सगळे संस्कृत पंडित होते, तर शहाजीराजांनी ते दान दिलं होतं आणि त्याला शहाजीराजपुरम असं पुढे नावही पडलं. तर भाषा आहे तर म्हणजे संस्कृत, तेलुगू, तमिळ, हिंदी भाषेतून पहिलं यक्षगान लिहिणारे शहाजी असं म्हणतात. त्यांच्या त्या यक्षगानातली सुद्धा मी रचना माझ्या पुढच्या सादरीकरणामध्ये निवडली. तर हेही मला आश्चर्य वाटलं की त्या काळात आणि त्याचा आहे म्हणजे एक पंचभाषा विलास म्हणून कदाचित तुम्ही ते पाहिलं असेल. तर तो प्लॉट असा गमतीदार आहे. त्या राजाच्या 5 राण्या होत्या, एक तेलुगू बोलायची, तमिळ, हिंदी, मराठी आणि संस्कृत. आणि म्हणजे असं पण असणार की समोर त्या काळात बसलेला प्रेक्षक वर्ग सुद्धा सगळ्या भाषा समजणारा असेल. त्यामुळे शहाजींची जवळजवळ 300 मराठी पदं आहेत, तेलुगूही तेवढीच तेलुगू पदं, आणि आज जो पल्लकी सेवा प्रबंध त्या सादर करणार आहेत ती तेलुगू पण आहे, तीच इन तेलुगू. सो तेलुगू ही संस्कृतला अधिक, तामिळ ही ओल्डेस्ट इंडिजिनस लँग्वेज म्हणतात. त्यामुळे त्याला लिपीतही त्यांच्या फक्त 5च अक्षर आहेत, क, च, ट, त, क. त्यामुळे कचा काही वेळा उच्चार असं आवडता, ख, ख, क, घ सगळं एकच. तसं तेलुगू नाही आहे. त्यामुळे बरीचशी शहाजींची पदं भूर्जपत्रावर तेलुगू स्क्रिप्टमध्ये लिहिलेली मला सापडली. तर ते काही पाठवेत, काही वेगळे. मी तेलुगू स्क्रिप्ट पण शिकले की ते मला वाचता यावं, आणि त्यातून मला त्या जुन्या, आता हे सगळं हाताळता येत नाही, आता लायब्ररीचा सगळा अनुभवच बदलला आहे, पण स्टील इट इज प्रिझर्व्ड. या सगळ्या गोष्टी आपण गेलात तर बघू शकता. तर हा एक त्यांचा विशेष होता की सगळ्या भाषांमधून त्यांनी साहित्य लिहिलं. संगीताचा विशेष त्यांचा अभ्यास होता. आता त्या बोलणारच आहेत त्यांच्या संगीताच्या ह्याच्याविषयी. त्यांचे जे धाकटे बंधू तुलजा, ते त्यांना ते मन्नारगुडी परगणा त्यांच्याकडे होता आणि तेही खूप विद्वान होते. त्यांनी संगीत सारामृत असा संस्कृतातून त्या काळच्या संगीत संप्रदायावर लिहिलेला ग्रंथ आहे. तर त्याच्यात त्यांनी शहाजींचा विशेष उल्लेख केलेला आहे की दॅट ही वॉज सो मच नॉलेजेबल ऑफ म्युझिक, आणि त्यांच्याकडून बऱ्याच रागासंबंधीच्या गोष्टी त्यांना कळल्या. या ग्रंथाचा एक खूप इंटरेस्टिंग डॉक्टर राघवांनी तो एडिट करून, आता मला वाटतं ते प्रिंटमध्ये पण नाही पुस्तक, पण राघवांनी मला स्वतःला दिलेली एक कॉपी माझ्याकडे आहे ज्याच्यात नृत्याध्याय आहे. आणि आज आम्ही जे भरतनाट्यममध्ये प्रकार ज्याला अडव म्हणतो बेसिक, त्या सगळ्याची वर्णन आहे. त्याची संस्कृत नाव आहे, म्हणजे ज्याला आम्ही तट्ट अडव म्हणतो ते समपादकुट्टनम अशी त्या सगळ्याची संस्कृत नावं पण त्यात दिली. म्हणजे तुलजांनी सुद्धा शहाजींचा खूप आदराने उल्लेख केलेला आहे. संगीताचं त्यामुळे त्यांचं त्याबद्दल, अर्थात नृत्य हे संगीतच आहे, तेवढा मी कर्नाटक संगीताचाही अभ्यास केला, मला तेही खूप जवळचं आहे. मी हिंदुस्थानीत पुढे प्रयोग केले तरी अजूनही मला कर्नाटक संगीत आमचं वाटतं, आपलं वाटतं. पण अर्थात त्याच्या शास्त्र आणि इतर गोष्टींचा, सुश्रुतीचा अभ्यास नक्कीच खूप वर्ष मी त्यांना ओळखते आणि खूप चांगलं काम त्या करतात. हा सांगीतिक अभ्यासाबद्दल त्यांच्या झालं. सर्वसाधारणपणे आय थिंक यू विल ऑल्सो कन्फर्म तंजावरच्या सर्व भोसल्यांचं बृहदीश्वर हे तिथलं लोकल दैवत ते होतं. पण शहाजींना संगीत आणि साहित्य आणि हे तर आहेच, पण त्यांना अद्वैत वेदांतामध्ये पण त्यांना खूप इंटरेस्ट होता. श्रीधर व्यंकटेश अय्यावळ नावाचे संत होते, म्हणजे हे दरबारी कवी बरेच होते, ते दरबारी वगैरे होते. त्यांनी शहाजींवर शाहेंद्र विलास म्हणून संस्कृत काव्य लिहिले. ते तुम्ही बघा, तुम्हाला आवडेल. ते TMSSनी पब्लिश पण केलं. म्हणजे एका संताला राजाबद्दल हे काही मी काय म्हणायचं डोनेशन त्यांना देतो, राजा दरबारातलेच कवी आहेत म्हणून राजाबद्दल स्तुती गायन केलेलं बरंच सापडतं. पण अय्यावळांनी शहाजींवर लिहिलं आहे. तर हा जो त्यांचा एक तत्वज्ञानात इंटरेस्ट होता, म्हणून याही त्यांच्याही गायनात तुम्हाला त्यागेश ही मुद्रा बऱ्याच ठिकाणी सापडेल. तर हे तंजावरच्या जवळ तिरुवारूर नावाचं क्षेत्र आहे, जिथे ही शिवाची वैशिष्ट्यपूर्ण मूर्ती आहे. म्हणजे शिव पार्वती आणि त्यांच्या मांडीवर एक छोटा कार्तिक आहे. म्हणजे पुरुष, प्रकृती आणि सृजन असं ते प्रतीक आहे. तर हे कुठनं आलं ह्याचं स्थलपुराण मी तिरुवारूरला जाऊन आले, कारण शहाजींनी फक्त शिवावर, मेन शिवा संदर्भात ती पदं शिवनायक धरून केलेली पदं आहेत, पण कृष्णावरही आहेत, देवीवरही आहेत. त्यामुळे मला हा इंटरेस्ट होता. आणि जे सारखं हितचतुर्भुज असं एका दैव त्यागराज हितचतुर्भुज, तर हे कुठनं येतं, कृष्णाचं आहे कुठून आला. सो आय वेंट टू तिरुवारूर अँड देर आर पेंटिंग, नायक पिरियड पेंटिंग, आणि त्यातनं तिथलं स्थलपुराण असं आहे की पार्वती म्हणजे नारायणी, ती विष्णूची बहीण. तर ते एका कुठल्या तरी समारंभाला विष्णू गेले असताना ते शिवाचा योग्य सन्मान त्यांच्याकडनं होत नाही म्हणून पार्वतीची चिडून त्यांना शाप दिला. तर तो उशाप दिला की ठीक आहे मग होता. तर ते त्यांनी ही मूर्ती तयार केली, शिव पार्वती आणि विष्णू हुशार, आणि मग ती करून छातीवर ठेवून झोपले शेषशाही. तर ते श्वास उच्छ्वास सोहमच्या मंत्राने तो जप झाला आणि त्यांना तो शाप गेला. तर अशी ती कथा आहे. आणि त्यामुळे अद्वैतात ज्यांना खूप रस होता आणि त्याविषयी होता, अशा शहाजींचा दैवत हे त्यागेश, त्यागराज स्वामी म्हणून ते जे पल्लकी सेवा प्रबंध ज्याचं गायन होतं त्या करणार आहेत, ते त्या दैवतावर. आय थिंक दे इज विष्णू पल्लकी ऑल्सो, नो, शिवपल्लकी आणि विष्णू ते अगदी उत्तम जॅझ तेलुगूमधलं हे आहे. त्याबद्दल अर्थात त्या बोलतीलच. तर या काही मला पदं सांगितल्याशिवाय चैन पडत नाही आहे. शहाजींच्या बहुतेक सर्व पदांचे नायक हे शिव आहे. पण नायक आणि नायिका म्हटलं की कुठेतरी त्यांना एका स्तरावर आणलं जातं, जो देवच आहे. पण नायिका असते ही सर्वसामान्यपणे सामान्य स्त्री समजली जाते. तर यांच्या पदांमधून म्हणजे केवळ कल्पनाविलास तर आहेत, पण अलंकार अलंकृत पण आहेत आणि वेगळ्याच कल्पना त्यातनं मिळतात. एक शृंगारपद असं आहे जे कळतं आपल्याला नंतर की हे पार्वतीच म्हणत असणार आहे. ती सखीला म्हणते, काय जोग्याने वंचिले मज रात्री, काय जोग्याने वंचिले, स्वतःला जोगी म्हणतो आणि माझी वंचना केली. तर आता ही वंचिले म्हटल्यावर ही अवस्थानुसार विप्रलब्धा वगैरे, पण एक वेगळाच ती स्त्रिया आहे, पत्नी आहे. तर कसं वंचिलं, भूषण ते मुन म्हणताच मेहा, भूषणे सारी दिली त्याने, काय हो, मी अगदी सगळे मला म्हणतात लंकेची पार्वती माझ्या हातात एकच हे आहे, मला दागिने द्या. सो भूषण दे म्हणतात सम्या. भूषणे सारी दिलीची म्हणून जरा डोळे मीठ. माझ्याकडे भूषणं कसली ती दिली त्याने. भूषण पेटी सोडिता दिवसा भुरी सरपट असाय आले. हां, तर ते भूषण दे म्हणतात सम्या. भूषणे सारी दिली त्याने. भूषण पेटी सोडिता दिवसा भुरी. भुरी हा संस्कृत शब्द आहे. मोठे मोठे साप मला चावायला आले. पट्ट वस्त्र दे म्हणतात सम्या. बघ माझा कसा आहे, मला चांगलं वस्त्र दे. पट्ट वस्त्र दे म्हणतात सम्या. पट तत्क्षणी सोडूनही दिला. शिवाजीकडे काय दुसरं, स्वतःचा पट सोडून दिला. पट्ट प्रातःकाळी पाहिल्या ना. आपण आता फटफटलं वगैरे सगळे मराठीतले शब्द आता नाहीसे झाले. पट्ट प्रातःकाळी पाहिल्या मा. पट्टाईत वाघाचे चर्म. सकाळी मी पाहिलं की रात्री मला काही सगळं रात्री घडलंय, त्यामुळे किती मऊ वगैरे असं वाटलं. सो पट्ट प्रातःकाळी. आणि आता सिल्क साडीला आहे त्यामुळे लोक पट्टपडवई म्हणतात. रेशमी इजंट इट, यू कॉल इट पट्टपडवई. कांचीपुरम. सो त्या पट्ट शब्दावर श्लेष त्यांनी इतका उत्तम केलाय. अनंग केली करी ये म्हटले म्या. अंगी केले अर्धांग त्याने. अनंतर दिवसा पाहतात सम्या. अर्धनारी पुरुष केले त्यागेशा. ते शेवटी त्यागेशा आहेत. आय सेड यू आर माय हजबंड, यू नेवर शो युअर लव्ह टू मी. ही जस्ट गेव हिज बेटर हाफ टू मी. सो त्या शब्दांचं म्हणजे साहित्याचा पण गोडवा, साहित्यिक गोडवा पण त्यांच्या पदांमध्ये खूप आहे. अर्थात रागाची नोटेशन्स नाहीत, पण मग ही सगळे जे रचना प्रकार मी निवडले त्यांच्या काही प्रबंधातून, यक्षगानातून, ते सगळे घेऊन मी किट्टप्पा पिले हे सरफोजी दुसरे आणि शिवाजी यांच्या काळामध्ये 4 सांगीतिक विद्वान होऊन गेले. त्यांना तांजोर क्वार्टेट म्हणून ओळखलं जातं, ज्यांच्या परंपरा हजारो रचना त्यांच्या आहेत. तर त्याच्यातल्या चिन्नय्या पोन्नय्या अशी वडील असे त्यांचे नावं. त्या पोन्नय्यांचे वंशज किट्टप्पाज फादर वॉज ऑल्सो पोन्नय्या. ही वॉज इन अन्नामला युनिव्हर्सिटी. So with these, I felt now I need somebody who would imagine because there were also ragas. I had never Gumma, Kampodi and Padi, and I had never even heard the names of these ragas. So I went to him, and Kittappa sir was so happy. He said, yes, I will put this to music. So त्यांनी त्या माझ्याकडनं I wrote in Telugu script, I wrote Marathi poetry for him. कारण त्यांना मराठी हिंदी हे काही येत नव्हतं, पण तेलुगू तामिळ ऑफकोर्स. सो ही डिडंट वॉन्ट टू ब्रेक द वर्ड्स इन अ, म्हणजे सांगीतिक म्हणून कुठेही शब्द असं नाही. वॉन्टेड टू रिटेन द मराठी फ्लेवर ऑफ दॅट. सो असं मी तेव्हा माझी तेलुगू स्क्रिप्ट लिहिण्याची हे मला कामी आली. मी त्यांना सगळं, कारण तेलुगूमध्ये देवनागरीसारखे सर्व हे अल्फाबेट्स आहेत. सो आय रोट दॅट अँड देन ही पुट ऑल दिस टू म्युझिक. तर अशी म्हणजे शृंगारपद, भक्तिपद, वैराग्यपद, नीतिपद, भावपद, मंगळपद असे अनेक पदांचे प्रकार त्यांनी त्याच्यात लिहिलेले आहे. एकच शेवटचं भक्तिपद त्याच्याबद्दल सांगते आणि थांबते. दीनमुन दया करी देवा. मी दीन आहे रे, म्हणजे माझ्याकडे काहीच नाही. ते दीन म्हणजे हीन दीन अशा अर्थी नाही आहे. मला काहीच कळत नाही, तू सर्वस्व आहे. दीन म्हणून दया करी देवा. नानाविध तुझं प्रीती कराया नाही शक्ती माझं शिवा. तुला काय अर्पण करू. नटने तुझं अर्जू म्हटल्या नट शिखा म्हणे तू. तुला काय मी मला छान डान्स येतो मी तुझ्यासाठी. छे तू तर नटराज आहेस, तुला काय देणार. नट शिखा म्हणे तू. पटुविद्येने प्रीती करू म्हटल्या मला. मी विद्यावंत आहे, मी तुला हे लिहितो आणि ते परिविद्यासार तू, तुला मी काय देऊ. तर अशा तऱ्हेने तू अकळंकदाने प्रीती करू म्हटल्या. ठीक आहे, मी सगळं नमवलंय, मी काही अपेक्षा करत नाही. अकळंकदाने प्रीती करू म्हटल्या, शंकर तू देवेश, शंकर शुभ करणारा. अशी तूच सगळ्यांचं शुभ करतोस, तुझ्याचमुळे मला हे मिळालंय, मी काय दान देऊ. अकळंकदाने प्रीती करू म्हटल्या, अखिल दाता त्यागेश तू. सगळं सोडून बसलेला तू त्यागेश आहे. मी कोण आहे? मी कोणीच नाही, म्हणून मी दीन आहे. तर आता नृत्यासाठी जेव्हा पद निवडतो तेव्हा त्याचं एक विस्तृत चित्र तयार व्हायला पाहिजे. जे फक्त शब्द आहेत त्याला हस्त लावला की नृत्य होत नाही, मग ते नृत्यपद होते. तर तशा तऱ्हेची गुणवत्ता मला शहाजींच्या या पदामध्ये मिळाली की ती नुसती गायची नव्हती, त्यातनं काहीतरी एक वेगळं चित्र उभं करायचं. तर काय तुला आरती ओळ, अरे तुझ्या हातातच अग्नी आहे, तुला मी काय दिवा दाखवू, अशा तऱ्हेचं. तुला फुलात छे तू तर नागाचे, अशा तऱ्हेने ती म्हणजे काय तुला मी अर्पण करू, ही कल्पना खूप प्रकारांनी वाढवता येते. अशा तऱ्हेचा आहे. तर ते शेवटी एकदा कार्यक्रमामध्ये तुला काय द्यायचं, मी अखिल दाता त्यागेश तू, आणि पद संपवून मी खाली बसले. मला खरंच त्या दिवशी माझ्या डोळ्यात पाणी होतं, पाणी आलं. मग मी म्हटलं की हे आता माझं आहे, हे मी तुला देते. एक क्षण सगळे प्रेक्षक शांत होते आणि नंतर भरपूर टाळ्या झाल्या. सो म्हणजे हे ते काव्य आणि ज्या प्रकाराने गिट्टप्पाने त्याचं हे पद मी हिंदुस्थानीत पण माझ्या कार्यक्रमात पण करते. तर अशा म्हणजे त्यांना नक्की त्यांचा नृत्यचा अभ्यास असणार, त्यांनी खूप बघितलं. त्याशिवाय अशा तऱ्हेच्या पदांची रचना झाली नाही. हल्ली आता खूप अशी हे आहे की चलो कुछ भी भावगीत ये ले लो वो ले लो डांस करो. तो ऐसे होता नहीं है. यू हैव टू दैट पोएट्री एंड दैट म्यूजिक हैज़ टू हैव दैट कैपेसिटी सो दैट यू कैन क्रिएट अ डांस पोएम. तो वो इन केस में है. एकच जाता जाता मला सांगावं असं वाटतं की आपल्या जे आता इतकी वेगवेगळ्या त्यांची सामाजिक राजकीय सगळीच इतकी अफाट कारकीर्द आहे. आमच्या शाळांच्या पुस्तकातून फक्त शिवाजी आणि तो तर आहेच, तो वाखाणण्यासारखाच इतिहास आहे, पण त्याच्याबरोबर मला वाटतं की 2 पानं या दक्षिणी कृष्णा कावेरी मधल्या या मंडळी भोसले मंडळींबद्दल पण असावं की इतकं सारं साहित्य आणि ज्याच्याकडे म्हणजे जे ऑलमोस्ट दुर्लक्षित आहे अजूनही, म्हणजे इतकं वेगवेगळ्या प्रकारचं आहे. आता मी एक नृत्य संगीत जाणणारी म्हणून मी तेवढा भाग पाहिला. आता माझ्या शिष्या आज काय की त्यांच्याही शिष्या यांच्यापर्यंत सगळ्यांना आता ते अजी सोन्याचा दिवस आणि ही मराठी पदं शिकताना दे फील गुड बिकॉज ॲटलीस्ट द लँग्वेज दे नो दो दे आर सेट टू कर्नाटिक म्युझिक. पण सो मला असं वाटतं की कोणी जर आपल्यापैकी असेल की जे शिक्षण याच्यामध्ये धस लावून की इतिहासाच्या पुस्तकामध्ये हा सांस्कृतिक तंजावरच्या राजांचा इतिहास, थोडा राजकीय सामाजिक आणि सांस्कृतिक हे साहित्यिक याच्याबद्दलही प्रकरण असलं पाहिजे, तर मुलं त्याचा पुढे पाठपुरावा करतील. धन्यवाद. सॉरी संस्कृती आहे. थँक्यू सो मच.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Your energy is so infectious. It was a pleasure listening to you. And your work has done something monumental for all of us. As you mentioned towards the end, that it is important that students today know the history of the Maratha Empire and the kings who were in Thanjavur as well in the south. Because what your work has done is that you've revealed to us that our Maratha kings were not just waging wars everywhere, although that was a very important requirement. We were also, the kings were also very well versed in the arts, in literature, in compositions, and as you mentioned, that it is not any random person on the street who can just write a pada which has the required richness to keep an audience rapt and to be able to express whether it's devotion, whether it's any other information or any other form of expression that you want to bring about. So thank you so much, ma'am, for your contribution and for being here today despite not feeling so would like to invite Mona Sawant to felicitate our chief guest today. Thank you so much. Now that we have an even richer introduction for the Shahaji-Raga-Lakshnam, I would like to invite Sushruti Santanam on stage along with her accompanist to begin her lecture. Joining her on stage, we have Srimati Soumya Jaya Bharadwaj and Abhinav on vocals. We have Surya on veena, and we have Avyay on mridangam.
ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जलशलाखया अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. I'm grateful to the Mohite Foundation, to Vikram Singh Mohite and the family for creating such a beautiful event this morning and for inviting me to be a part of it. This is the second time I'm giving a talk on this topic, but hopefully this time we take a step forward in looking at the grainier details of the history of the Marathas with specific reference to their cultural production. When the war has been fought and the dust settles, then what? Then what is it that the king does that is going to create a society, create communities that can self-actualize, that can find, as individuals and as a society, find their goal, contentment, and a higher ideal. The Marathas of Thanjavur, who come in a long tradition of Rajas of that region, very quickly grasped onto this one idea. while the war was being fought in the rest of the country, where there was less political intrigue and stress, and I wouldn't say no, but where there is a less chance of instability, all that can be done to create a tremendous bhandara of knowledge, all that could be done towards that was done in Thanjavur. And today I actually want to, because it is a Krishna Kaveri Samvada, it gives me an opportunity to also speak about a little bit about changing our impression about traditional historical society. Thanjavur was one of the most cosmopolitan places of its time. And we don't generally use the word cosmopolitan for something that's 400 years old because we believe that it's all very old, so it had to be very conventional and conservative. But it was one of the most cosmopolitan places of the subcontinent. I'd like to start actually with a little story because a lot of history has already been spoken here. Between Vikram Singh ji and Suchita Tai, they have actually given you a beautiful picture of the land and what people were able to achieve through their genius. Where does this come from? So there is Shastra and Purana. We keep hearing these words. It's basically the theoretical framework and the archival material. That's all. So the intention for doing something, whether it's historical, cultural, scientific, technological, comes from wanting something not just for the self but for society, and the king exemplified this character. So there is a Purana, it's an Upapurana called the Vishnu Dharmottara Purana, supposed to have been created around the 5th century CE. This is, and there are many things in the Purana, and one of it is a conversation that Rishi Markandeya has with King Vajra. King Vajra is supposed to have taken over from Dwapara to Kali Yuga. And I'm just going to sort of, shorten it to a few lines. To the question of what should a king do so that divinity expresses itself as an ideal in Kali Yuga, where every person can see truth in the form of divinity. Rishi Markandeya then explains that temples have to be built, but for temples to be built, the king has to know Shilpa Shastra, Sangeeta Shastra, Nritya Shastra, Chitra Lakshana, and finally Natya Shastra and the rules of grammar of language. So unless all of this is done, a temple cannot be built. And if a temple cannot be built, then there is no mapdand against which the king measures. This is the rule in India, temple has to be built. But a temple cannot be built by a king. He has to go through this entire education before because a temple is a place where as individuals and as communities and societies we go in order to understand who we are, whatever we may be doing at home or outside. And hence it is a place where all knowledge has to come together as an expression of science, of technology, of the arts and language. And I think this rule never changed. And we see that finally even up to the Saraswati Mahal Library. It's a temple. Because of the very limited resources that he had, he probably could not go out, Sarfoji the second of Thanjavur, could not go out and build a temple, but he built the Saraswati Mahal Library. And as Carnatic musicians, if you went to Tamil Nadu, and I'm speaking now as a Tamil person, the consciousness of the Maratha rule in Thanjavur or in large parts of what is today the Tamil country is not so much. But the musicians and the dancers have no way of forgetting it. because they are in our compositions, they are in our padas, in our Raga-Lakshana, in all the treatises on dance and dramaturgy. You cannot miss the contribution of the Maratha period. But historiographically speaking, because we have an opportunity today to speak about Krishna Kaveri, I thought I should contextualize a little bit where, at least as far as music is concerned, how the historiography in music overlaps with what was happening around, which we now know through historical records of wars and of people moving. So there is a lot of movement of people, in the Deccan area and the south mostly, but also people who go north and come back. So there is politics and there's religion, and the traffic is tremendous. And these are not people who are going for sightseeing. They go to learn, they go to study, they carry knowledge, and they carry knowledge back. And music history is one such which actually shows how this happens in the grainy details. Somebody went from, so Sangeeta Darpana is a wonderful book which actually gives you this idea of somebody born in Guntur, travels all the way to Jahangir's court. And then he comes back. So what kind of conversation could have happened when such things happen? So before going to the Marathas, I want to actually take you a little bit through the movement of musical knowledge. Chalukya, 12th century. Yadava, 13th century. The Vijayanagara, we all know what a grand empire that was. 1550 to Nayaka, 1560, Nayakas of Thanjavur, to the Marathas from late 1600 onwards, to the latter part of 1700s and 1800s as well. Each century, leaving the 1300s and the 1400s, there is a huge black hole for music. And I suppose something was happening politically then. And we know this because we have texts in the 1500s that is struggling to read the texts from 1200. They don't know what the music of... In 200 years, the forgetting is tremendous. They're struggling to read those texts. They're struggling. So there is the Sangeeta Ratnakara, which is written in Devagiri, Daulatabad, near Aurangabad here, by Sharangadeva, who was a Kashmiri Pandit, whose father came down to be a minister at the Yadava kingdom. And Sangeeta Ratnakara is one of the most seminal texts for both Northern Indian and Southern Indian music. But we don't know what the idea of raga that it represents or it speaks about it is. We have no way of visualizing it. And when I say we, it's not a 21st century problem, it was a 16th century problem. And constantly people are dealing with that. But even before, Someshwara of Kalyan, the Chalukya, his text of Manasollasa is, for a person who does music research, just going into, somebody in IIT Bombay is doing a text on the Kala Pramana of Raga given in Manasollasa. Something as specific and small like that, of the speed and the rhythm and the time counter of how a raga should be handled. And it speaks to us from across so many centuries. But what is interesting is how it has come to us. It has traveled all the way west and east and west and east in a swinging pattern until it comes down to Thanjavur in the 1500s, with the arrival of the vestiges of the Vijayanagara empire in the form of the Nayaka kings. And the Nayaka kings are extraordinary in the sense that Suchita Tai already told us about how kings through Mahamanyam established great villages. Melatur is one of the village where this Bhagavata Mela, as it is known today, happens, and it's an extraordinary sort of mix of Yakshagana and classical Sanskrit theatre and the Terkut tradition of Tamil Nadu and all of that, and it is carried like the pallak by the musicians from all over the place, and then they come to Melatur, they come to Thiruvisainallur, they come to so many other Mahamanya villages. I suppose they would have been like Ivy League universities, because they had philosophers, they had scholars in language, in literature, in music, they had astrologers, so there must have been a lot of arithmetic going on there. So these kinds of places that were set up they created a kind of energy that through all manners of political upheavals and instability has carried the knowledge system down 300 years, 400 years to us, so that we may actually, do our PhDs and publish our books. It's impossible without thinking of these people as enablers of knowledge. So this is a very different conception of an empire. It's a very different conception of kings. And I think that to bring in that flavor of constantly thinking about how to nurture knowledge is something that is not possible if you had political instability. And for that we know through history that the fact that the South was protected by the Vijayanagara and the Maratha empires is something that is a fact that cannot be denied. But having that luxury of stability, what did the kings there do? If they had not done anything, it would have been a complete waste. But they did something that this carries. Now it is going to, even whether we do it well or not, this is going to carry through for the next few centuries. That is the volume of work and the intensity of work that has happened. When this topic of Raga-Lakshana was suggested to me, I was a little worried because it's a technical topic. If I go into the melodic structure of ragas and the Melakarta scheme and so on, it would become a music lecture, and I frankly don't want to bore people who do not engage with music at a level. But then I thought it has to be done at some level, because today we see music as entertainment. But music was not considered entertainment. It was considered a tool with which to engineer the manasikta of an entire society, to move them towards certain ideals. It could be Swaraj. If you need to speak about Swaraj, you need a certain autonomy of creativity, which means then the knowledge has to reach everybody. So yes, I will give a short introduction to why we are speaking about Raga-Lakshana and why it is an important text. You know the word raga. It is a melodic mode. Hindustani people will understand it through the system of Thaat. In the south, there is a classification called Melakarta. It's an arithmetical formula. It was given in the 1500s and in the early 1600s. There were two very great scholars in the Nayaka court, in Vijayaraghav Nayaka and Raghunatha Nayaka's court, Govinda Dikshita and his son Venkatamaki. So they studied what existed as musical forms before them, and Venkatamaki created a beautiful text called the Chaturdandi Prakashika, in which he simply said all of music, and I am paraphrasing what he says, all of music can actually be understood by using a certain formula. and he said 72 modes, those will be the parent modes, and out of which, if you take away a swara, if you reorder the swaras in a certain way, you can create infinite possibilities. Let us leave it at that. He said that, and during his time, he only worked with about 20 ragas, because all the time in the texts, what we see is there is a shastra, there is a arithmetic possibility, there is a formula, but they will also tell you this is what exists. There is no covering up. They say, I know 72 ragas can be there, out of which we can create innumerable possibilities, but right now we have 20. And then he places the 20 according to the formula in various places. He spreads them around in the 72. And then that is what is worked upon by scholars after him. And in that lineage comes Shahaji. Maharaja Shahaji created a text called Raga-Lakshnam. And he included some Hindustani ragas as well, because he must have, thought of introducing new ideas, but he brought it under the Carnatic parent raga scheme. So these were all sort of fledgling initiatives. But we know of the greatness of Shahaji's Raga-Lakshana only through his brother Tulaja's Sangeeta Saramrita that Sucheta Dai was talking about. Sangeeta Saramrita is a work that we hold in high regard even now, because for the entire 1700s, this becomes a seminal text that tells us what existed in terms of musical practice and how they perceived the grammatical structure. What happens when you have a precedence like this is that, and I'm going to jump now 200 years from then, from the early 1700s to 1800s, for 150 years, that there are mnemonic techniques. How do you remember 72? You don't know. I mean, if you're a scholar, yes, and then you know the frequencies, you know Ashuddha Rishabha, you know Chatushruti Rishabha, you know Ashakshruti Rishabha, you know Ashuddha Gandhara, Sadharana Gandhara, Antara Gandhara, Shuddha Madhyama, Pratimadhyama, Shuddha Devata. So these are things that you know if you're a scholar. If you're just singing, then what? So Venkatamakhi in his own Chaturdandi Prakashika gives us a little help, because he says now Kali Yuga aa gaya, now you will not be able to see divinity, so we'll help you a little bit. So in his scheme he says, okay, you want to know if there is Shuddha Rishabha, this Shuddha Rishabha, Shuddha Gandhara, Shuddha Madhyama, Shuddha Devata, then then this is this raga. So you know the raga, you've been singing it, somebody sang it, you heard it. So now you imagine these notes in terms of what you heard as a raga. You don't need to abstract it out of your memory. What Shahaji did was even more extraordinary. What he did was, he created descriptions beyond just raga. He said, here is the theoretical description of the raga, and now here is the Gita in it, here is the Alapa, the Thaya, the Prabandha, the Udgraha, the Suladi. Here I have given you the whole repertoire. Now you go, you may have somebody who knows, a Suladi in that raga. You learn it and then you know what Kanakambari or whatever raga that, I shouldn't say Kanakambari because Venkatamaki did not have that schema yet. Whatever raga that was, Mukhari, Bhairavi, Sri Raga, whatever the raga was, you heard it, no? That person sing, this is how it sounds and this is where it stands. So this was a kind of a democratization of knowledge, so that every person does not have to become a scholar. If you're a musician, if you're a rasika, if you're a person who just sings because he likes singing, but not in the sense of a performer, you still can find out where the raga stands in the Melakarta structure. So that kind of democratization of knowledge comes when scholars and patrons decide that they want to do it. And this is a fantastic example of a text. And from the text we can see how the social element of wanting music to reach people can take form in the form of a manuscript. Perhaps this is why Shahaji also had the title of Abhinava Bhoja, because for patronage, Bhoja is the measure, is the standard, it's the gold standard. So whether the text is ascribed to Shahaji, whether it was Shahaji who composed it, or whether it is a work that is actually patronized in his court, the quality and the standard and the extraordinary finesse and the subtlety of the works that come out of the Maratha court is so high that the title Abhinava Bhoja for Shahaji sits very well. So this work of Raga-Lakshana forms the basis for Sangeet Saramrita and many of the other works that come after that in the 17 and the 1800s. In the 1800s, another way of remembering Melakarta comes, which is much later in the 1800s. It's called the Mela Raga Malika, where it's a Raga Malika, 72 ragas, 72 verses have been composed. Each verse tells you exactly, the progression of the raga scheme. So we want to actually, first, before we get into Pallaki, show you this. But before that, this Mela Raga Malika, maybe we'll sing it first, and then I'll tell you an interesting antecedent to the Mela Raga Malika. So what happens is, towards between the time of Shahaji, early 1700s to 1800s, the ragas have expanded from 20, using the formula of 72. Now by mid 1800s, even early 1800s, 72 ragas are available as parent ragas, from which we cull out combinations, and continuously, we see Janya ragas grammatically, not randomly, but grammatically and based on certain rules and canons. Janya ragas are created. So the way we imagine it is, you have sa re ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa ma. There are two types of mas which are recognized as tools to separate the 72 into two. So you have the ma 36 and the ma 36, and then with each of these 36 you have 6 ways in which 6 variations that are made, so you get 72. Because sa and pa are called prakriti swaras, they have no variations. There can only be one sa and one pa. There can be 2 mas, but re, ga, dha, ni, you have 3 variations. And so he creates this formula and he throws it to us, and then the challenge is picked up by a lot of people. There's a lot of controversies. This is right, this naming scheme, that naming scheme, asampurna mela, sampurna mela. There are lots of things that are internal conflicts that we still fight over. The fight is not over. I mean, the wars that have been waged by the Maratha have been won and lost, but our wars are not over yet. Even within the Carnatic music field, Raga-Lakshana is a big battlefront. but it is exciting because of all these things that these discussions and debates and fights throw up, because we still grow, we've not finished growing. So the 72, the first two melas, I will ask Soumya to sing. In the latest system that we follow, that was also followed by Tyagaraja, who is one of our greatest Vagyakaras, one of the greatest composers of Carnatic music. In the Sampurna Mela Paddhati, we have the first two ragas, Kanakangi and Ratnangi.
Kanakangya Ramaya Pujita Sanakadi Priya Kripalaya Kanakangya Ramaya Pujita Kanaka Sanakadi Priya Kripalaya
Can you just play Kanakangi? So with this scale, a musician can't do anything. There is no way in which to imagine a raga with this scale. And hence, you have, in a short form, all the contours, the entire landscape of Kanakangi is shown.
Ratnangya Dharma Samvardhanya Ramanama Paripalaya Ratnangya Dharma Samvardhanya Ramanama Paripalaya.
So the only thing that has changed between Kanakangi and Ratnangi is the Nishada. So there was the first Daivata for Kanakangi and the second Daivata for Ratnangi, and now the third Daivata will come for the next Raga. But what this is, there is a important sort of interlude that I want to bring in here. This was not the original Mela Raga Malika, that was the first composition like this. The first composition was actually in Marathi. It was called Bahattara Raga Malika, composed by Lavani Venkatrao. And all of this is part of the history of the music of Thanjavur and Tamil Nadu. We don't even see them as being Maharashtrians or, from outside. This is part of us. Now you will have to take it away from us. We won't give it that easily. But what I want to actually show you is two lines of this Raga-Lakshana, how it has been built into the language. So the verse is Shuddhariti cha Gramapati ha Dhanika Kubera sama Nrivari. शुद्धरी रीतीचा ग्रमपति धनिका Kubera Saman Rivari. Now for Ratnangi, everything else is Shuddha, only the Nishada, and that Nishada is called Kaishiki Nishada. There's Kaishiki Nishada and Kakali Nishada. And that, the verse is Kairavamshi Nishi Nipazuni Shashisa Sukhavitase Zani Bhuvivari. The only thing that's mentioned there is Kairavamshi Nishi. Kai Ni. Kaishiki Nishada. So if you are a musician and you are somehow able to, Marathi musician, you are able to read these verses, then you actually know how to plug into the 72 Melakartas. Because the verse itself actually indicates only the one thing that changes. The next verse will have Kakali Nishada. And then the next verse will have Shuddha Devata. So, Su and Dha. So, this was the precedent to the Melaraga Malika that was composed by Mahavaidyanath Shivan, which we all sing today because it's accessible to us in terms of language. Marathi is not. But we also don't know the musical form of this. It has to be unearthed because it has not been in sort of vogue. We probably have forgotten the meaning of it. But this is the level up to which Marathi is intertwined with the imagination of Carnatic music. And this doesn't... Somebody mentioned Karnataka. There is a reference to Karnataka in a 10th century or 11th century text from Nepal, which says the Sangeeta of Karnataka. But Karnataka also means Prachina. So this is the music from a very ancient place. That's all there is. But there is also the further reference to the Vijayanagara Empire. Because the Vijayanagara Empire encompassed all of these language groups and the regions of these language groups in such a way that when they sort of came down and moved to Hampi and then Penukonda and then, as it shrank, people just moved wherever they could find patronage or they were invited. And so it is all of that comes to Thanjavur. Thanjavur becomes the receptacle of everything that has already been tried and done, and then they do some more. So it's a very extraordinary experience for the region of, and I will not say Tamil speaking people alone, because even now there are, my own family, my mother's side is from Mannargudi, which is very close to, which is Thanjavur basically, the Kaveri Delta. But my father's side, actually they are from a Telugu speaking, that we should not actually, because there are so many entry points. Now the Pallaki Seva Prabandham that we will present now. I had a lot to sort of share, but I think I'll now sort of present it as an epitome of the effort that we have taken to remember. The story of the Pallaki Seva Prabandham is very interesting. So Shahaji, of course, in his court had this great coterie of scholars and thinkers and mystics also, like she was mentioning, Sridhara Ayyawal, great mystic. Their connection with Tiruvarur is also very interesting. Tiruvarur is the spiritual center whose allegiance validated the Chola authority. And the Nayakas were Vaishnavas, so the Nayaka kings paid allegiance to the Rajagopala Swami in Mannargudi. And Tiruvarur was wide open. And hence when the Marathas came, being Smartha, being from a tradition of Shiva worship, it was a no-brainer. And Tiruvarur is not just an Advaita Kshetra. It is a Kshetra, so there is Tyagesha and his consort, Parvati, in the form of Nilotpalamba, But there is also Kamalamba, who sits by herself. She is the center of the Shakta universe. She's the deity of Sri Vidya Upasana. So Kamalamba is a veritable powerhouse in herself, and she, has so much influence all around that in Mannargudi, the Rajagopala Swami on some days actually he is supposed to be the Shakta Amsha of Vishnu. So in Shaktam it is believed that Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma were created from the dirt under the fingernail of Shakti. He is that Amsha of Shakti. So there are some festivals in which Rajagopala, the young Krishna, is also dressed half and half as male and female. The Tatanka Kundala that Shiva has, Rajagopala Swami also has on some days in Mannargudi. So the power of Shakti there is extraordinary. The Marathas actually, in all their compositions and their productions, they have exemplified the Grihastha Shiva. Shiva there with Nilotpalambika is in Grihastha Ashrama with Narayana as the child dancing in the Ajapa Natana on the chest of Shiva to the beat of his heartbeat. So the imagination of Shiva here is not as a mystic saint, but it is as the king, because he's Tyaga Raja. Tyaga Isha, but he's also Tyaga Raja. So when Shahaji comes to the Pallaki Seva, Shiva Pallaki Seva Prabandha, Shiva is a king. He is in his court. And who is sitting there? There are all his equals, Brahma and Vishnu, and then there are the Devas, and all of these people are there. And there are descriptions of the court, which actually could be, wonderful detailing if some designer could come and visualize and redesign the court. Because there are so many fine details of what everything looked like. Shiva Pallaki and Vishnu Pallaki both have that. Of upholstery, of furniture, of silk, of cloth, of food, of jewelry, of so many different things that form the material culture of Shahaji's times. You can see them in the play, where the king is Shiva and the queen is Parvati. And Shahaji often inserts himself as the court poet in this court. So in many of the songs, Shahaji is sitting there and singing to Shiva as the court poet. So all of this comes in the presentation we'll be making. There is something that Sucheta Tai was referring to time and again: the difficulty of imagining music, of historical music. If something is 300 years old, how do you know what it sounded like when there are no recordings and so on? It's the diligence of practice. In India, we've paid great attention to both Shikshana and Sadhana, Talim and Riyas, so that the discipline of remembering does not, if you compromise on that, then you're not compromising your own practice, your own performance, you are compromising history. And hence the discipline was extraordinary. And one of the communities in the south that practiced that and has brought this music, this kind of extraordinary memory to the 20th century is the community of Devadasis. The Pallaki Seva Prabandha almost looks like it was composed for the Devadasis to be sung at the Tiruvarur temple. And there are historians who have recorded that as late as 1900s, around 1910s, these compositions were still being sung at the Tiruvarur temple. And why? Because the Pallaki Seva is a ritual. So Shahaji picked an actual ritual that is part of the agama of that temple. And then he slapped his skills of dramatization on it. And he filled it with the details of what was there in his court. and shaped it and crafted it in beautiful music and created a Gaya Nataka. It's not a Drishya Nataka. The Shivapallaki Seva Prabandham is a Gaya Nataka. It is sung. And so the Devadasis sing it, and for 100 years they're singing it, for 200 years they're singing it. But then comes Sarfoji, who, due to his own historically specific location as a person who has lost his kingdom, I mean, the British are there, and through their mediation, all he has to work upon is that library. But Sarfoji is also a person, I think, who for the first time in that region realizes the loss of tradition. Shahaji is not worried that tradition will be lost. Shahaji is diving into tradition like fish into water. Whatever is there, he has the capability, he has the environment, he has the legacy, both the political legacy and personal education. He is able to dive into it. But Sarfoji, the second of that region, realizes that there is an imminent loss that is going to come in the 1800s, which is already creeped in. And so a lot of what Sarfoji does is documentation, archiving, while he is also composing. So I spoke in the last talk I gave about Devendra Kuravanji, which my teacher, my thesis advisor, Dr. Radhika Seshan here, she brought it from the Saraswati Mahal library and she gave it to me and she said, you need to pay attention to this. It's an extraordinary book. It's a curriculum. It's a textbook of geography and cosmology set to raga. And it has, it speaks about the heliocentric model. It speaks about countries all over the world in Marathi to be sung and taught in schools. Because Sarfoji attempted to start this series of schools called Navavida Vidyashala. And in those schools he wanted to bring together traditional knowledge and modern knowledge. He said we cannot miss out on what is happening in the world. It's an extraordinarily forward-thinking king. So the Devendra Kuravanji is something that should be introduced into the curriculum because it speaks of geography and cosmology. It is as relevant today as it was in the 1800s. So it is in the Saraswati Mahal library that a copy of the Shivapallaki Seva Prabandham and Vishnu Pallaki Seva Prabandham was kept. And then after 100 years, through musicologists and several people who took a great amount of effort, particularly Professor Samba Murthy, who finds this book but who also finds Devadasis who remembered it. And there are very interesting incidents where he goes to this particular Devadasi because he wants to imagine the music, because there are only verses there, there's no notation as Suchita Dai was mentioning. And she said, I will sing it only once. So he goes with his band of 9 students and as she is singing they notate it. And that notation has come to us. So in any form, the music of Shahaji, even in its most sort of degraded form we may say, but it may not be because the Devadasis had a tradition of listening and learning. Their process of learning was very different. The pedagogy was different. And then in 1984, my guru and mother, she found this notation and she interpreted it. And in 2010, we learnt it. The Gurukulam learnt it for her 75th birthday. And in 2012, we recorded it as a CD and we published a book with, unfortunately it's out of publication now, with essays on it and the songs both in Telugu with English translation so that it may be understood by all. This Telugu is what is called Achat Telugu, which does not have too much Sanskrit in it. It's very old Telugu. So our first presentation of this was in Hyderabad and the scholars there were very pleasantly surprised by by the use of Acha Telugu, which is literary Telugu. It is not common Telugu. So that is the kind of Telugu that Shahaji had to absorb and compose and patronize, apart from the other languages that were there. So just the sheer volume of work that has gone on in those 100 years is staggering. So with that, I think we'll present some excerpts, some songs from the play, because this is a prabandha. It has various compositional forms. It has daru, it has champakamalas and gadyams and padyams and churnikas and all of that. But the songs that you will hear, which are called darus, have been interpreted from the notation that was made by Professor P. Sambamurthy and received from the Devdasi tradition of Thanjavur. And there's a little sad part of it is he also recorded this entire thing in the voice of one of the musicians, Srimati P. Telakam, for the All India Radio. And we don't know where the recording is. We'll just say we don't know where it is, we won't say it has been destroyed, in the hope that we may find it in future. So the story of the Shiva Pallaki it is entirely sung by the Sakhis of Parvati, who cannot bear the viraha that Parvati is suffering, being separated from Shiva. So the Sakhis go to the court of Shiva, and then they're wondering how to approach him. So they say, shall we send the snake? Shall we send a message with the deer, with Ganga, with the moon? And then they finally say, no, all of these people are unfit, because each of them has a fault. And they cannot carry this Raya Bhara. The royal messenger has to have a certain character. And none of these people have that character. So finally the Sakhis go themselves. And they give him the message, and he immediately agrees to come. And then his palki is brought. And he sits in the palki and he goes to the abode of Parvati. That is the ritual in Trivandrum. The ritual is carrying of Shiva to the Sannidhi, the altar of the sanctum of Nilotpalamba. And that one ritual now has, it has been embellished with a story. And then he goes there, and there's a lot of... So it also shows us what the culture of a place with the luxury of time and wealth is, So there are several rituals that are done, little things, when important people are there. And so this whole set of compositions describe that scenario.
श्रीकरिमुकुनि पोषित चतुर्मुकुनि एकदन्तुनि दुरितापकेसरिणि तारकदैत्यविदारुणि गुहुनि गारवंबुनकन्न गौरी शङ्करुल पल्लकि सेव प्रबन्धमुगानु उल्लासमुन चतुरुतल वेलयु सर्वं सहा चक्रम्बुनेलु शर्वपादाम्बुज सन्नुति परुडु वासरवल्लभान्वय राजमौळि भोसल श्री सा भूपुरन्दरुडु विरचिंचे कवुलल्लवेणोल्ल पोगड धरणिलो आ चन्द्रतारार्कमुगनु
the Sakhis have arrived at the court and they are wondering how to go and tell Shiva, come. You cannot just ask the king to come. So, Yatula Rammantu Noyamma. How will I just say, Rammu, come in Telugu? Indu Dharuni, the one who holds Chandra on his head. How do we just go and then all of these people are there, you know, Brahma is sitting and Shiva is sitting and Vishnu is there and he's laughing with somebody, he's discussing with somebody is come into the court with a little plea, somebody is discussing royal matters, maybe, you know, some problem. How can we just go in and ask him to come? So that is the song. Yatularam mandu noyamma, Yatularam mandu noyamma, Indu dharuni, Yatularam mandu noyamma, Yatularam mandu noyamma, Indu dharuni, Yatularam mandu noyamma, Vitalane tudu nedu ninnu koluvayunnadu, Yatularam mandu noyamma, పదివేషముల సామి పలుకు లాలించి చల ముదమున నతనితో ముచ్చటడేటి వేళ యటులరం నోయమ్మ, తెలియగా లోకముల తెరగిల్ల విన్నవించే నలువానుగనుగోని నవ్వుచుండేటి వేళ యటులరం మందు నోయమ్మ, కదగగదాలరాస కార్యములు విన్నవించే బలవైరి మదిలోని భయము తీర్చే వేళ యటులరం మందు నోయమ్మ, దిన దినము దేవాది దేవునిపై శ్రీ సాహగనుడు గావించు మేటి కవితలు వినువేళ యటులరం మందు నోయమ్మ. దినదినము దేవాది దేవునిపై శ్రీ సాహగనుడు కవించు మేడి కవితలు వినువేళ. When he is listening to Sahaganudu's poetry, how can we go and disturb him? When he is listening to the poetry of Shahaji, we cannot just enter and disturb him. It has to be over, so we'll wait. So in every song he inserts himself like this. Instead of a colophon or instead of a mudra that, you know, I made it, he makes it interesting by being part of that whole thing, where Shiva is the ultimate king and you are a praja anyway. So now the question comes of who to send. Can we send Ganga? No, they say this Ganga, no, she just smashes everything. I mean, look at what has happened to the Himalayas. She just breaks everything. She has no vinaya. She will just go and shout into his ear or something, and that's not the way to send a message. So no. And then they come to the deer, and you see, one thing is the theme, the other is to think, because it's a Gaya Nataka. You have to be able to imagine the movement of a deer, and hence the entire the whole composition itself moves between a Tishra and a Chatushra. Because the deer has no control, no? It will suddenly go this way and then it will go that way. And that's one of the demerits of sending a message with a deer, because it doesn't have its own mind, they say. But the composition itself is like that. It's both in Tishra and Chatushra. It keeps moving. But then, because of this, sort of lack of stability that the deer generally shows, they reject the deer, and somebody suggests a snake. They say it is two-tongued. You can never control it. We never know what it will say. Okay, so then they decide to speak with the Chandra on the Hindu, on his head. Now, this is a Champakamala, but the beautiful detail here is the syllable Ma refers to Lakshmi, and Ma is repeated many times over in this word, because Ma is somebody who came along with Chandra during the Samudra Manthan. So he's saying you will have an affinity to her, no? So and our Girija is like Lakshmi only. So you please keep that in mind as your sister and go and give this message to Shiva. Maruvaka Chandamama Vinuma Idini Koka Bharama Rama Taruni Samana Ma Girijata Masama Chalamelama Numa Karamula Mrukuma Manavi Gai Konuma Harutodu Del Puma Veravaga Choduma Madini
शिखाङ्करत्नमा
But Chandra is also born with the halahala. So somebody who has any association with poison is obviously not the right choice for carrying a message of such great gentleness and subtlety. So they decide they will go by themselves. And so they enter. Now when you enter, the best way in which to speak to somebody is to first praise them and then gently tell your work. And because you also have to explain the state in which Parvati is. So, and she is in a very delicate state, she is very vulnerable. Even the breeze disturbs her, the sound of the parrots are too loud. The mention of his word makes her shiver. Nothing satisfies her. She just can't be herself. And so initially you go in praising and then you sort of soften down. So there are two pieces we will sing together, one after the other. I will not break for an explanation. And then you will see that in its own, in the musicality of it, you will understand what part of the Nataka we are in.
O Dina Mandara, O Nagara, O Daya Sagara, O Shubhakara, O Dina Mandara, O Nagara, O Daya Sagara, O Shubhakara, Vamakshi Gauri Devaraka Gauri, Ramuni Cheluli Gadi Jesoli, Karapuchunadi Chala Galiki Vela, Kalaya Ravaya Shankara Chakanaya, Kalaya Ravaya Shankara Chakanaya, Kalaya Ravaya Shankara Chakanaya.
They have been received. So what is there to wait? They say, please rise and come with us. Don't delay. Because she is not able to take it. Tada ledayya ma bala. She cannot take it any longer. Our child, ma bala, she is really withering. So, yelukovayya. Please rise.
Bye.
point, the Pallaki has come, and the Pallak is an extraordinarily beautiful one, and its Shringara is something that they describe in detail. We won't sing, it's a long song. But it's in a beautiful Shankarabharanam, which shows the grandeur of it. Shingaram Pupallaki Chalu Judave. Din dinna, it's coming. Din dinna, din. Shingaram Pupallaki Chalu Judave. Sangeeta Melamutono Sannotinchi Nederuni Shingaram Pupallaki Chalu Judave. So there the royal Pallak has come and he has gotten into it. Now the Sakhis are, they get very fussy after that because the Pallak is now moving. But, they are worried because the person inside is so important. So they are constantly giving instructions to the bearers of the Pallak. They're saying, don't change your shoulder too often, don't go too fast, don't go too slow, don't rock it, because there is a place where they say, Kukshinunna Brahmandamulella Nugaboyini. So he holds the entire universe in his stomach. If you rock it, then the entire universe will rock. So you better know who you are carrying. Kadaling Kukuroi Pallaki. Madhyama. Kadalimbaguroyi Pallaki, Kadalimbaguroyi Pallaki, Kadalani Guroyi Jala, Kadalimbaguroyi Pallaki, Kadalani Guroyi Jala, Kadalimbaguroyi Pallaki. Mruduvaina Jangamaina Menu Rajiniya, Kadalimbaguroyi Pallaki. So such is the progress of the Pallak with many instructions and fussiness. They arrive at Gauri Nagar, which is the place of Gauri's residence. And then there are many compositions here which, because of lack of time, we will not present today. This is the place where the entire description of her room with furniture and upholstery and all of this is given, and then her jewelry and her clothes, and all of this must come out of the royal household and what they used. So it's a fascinating read actually in Telugu with translation. So once he arrives, then it is a Vaibhava. It is a great festival. It has to be celebrated in Gauri Nagari. And he is no ordinary person. He is the holder of the Vedas. And he has come to the threshold of Gauri's Nagari. నిగమగోచరుడిప్పుడు నగజ నగరీ వాకిటకు నిల్వ జేలు వందనములు సొలుపకని సోమనంది హెచ్చరిక తెలుపుచున్న ముచ్చట జూడు చిన్ని చెలియ జేలు. The Devas are all there. They're all celebrating the fact that he has come to Gauri Nagari. I can visualize, if I put myself in a place where the kings will move from one abode to the other, the number of people who will be traveling with them and the entire scenario can actually be visualized if you put yourself there. And so there are so many different sort of stages and rituals that happen. One is this Churnikai, where you announce the king and you praise him with all his, praise all his very particular characteristics. It's called a Churnikai.
जय जय सकल गीर्वाण वंदित पादारविंद जय जय सच्चिदानंद जय जय कनकधराधर कोदंड
जय जय धनुजान्तककाड जग जग गण्डस्थल निगन्मणि कुण्डलि कुण्डल सद्गुणमण्डल जग जग साहधराधिप चित्ताम्बुजपतंग
जय जय धवलांग जय जय निज भक्त भयनाश जय जय त्यागेश नमस्ते नमस्ते नमः.
The idea of singing a Mangalam, that may everything happen well, may everything go well, wishing for the proper sort of occurrence of all the activities and the rituals is a tradition in the south. So singing Mangalam at every stage when something good has happened is a tradition. So now that he has arrived, there is a Mangalam, and there will be a Mangalam at the end also. Jaya Mangalam Nitya Shubha Mangalam Jaya Mangalam Nitya Shubha Mangalam Malakajam Duru Galave Purayani Tolu Kuju Polagatu Torapati ragas are used a lot in Shahaji's plays. Paramamuri vinodanu bhavuni kiremuni madanati harana janamati isatiki karuna rasa chief Sakhis who went to bring in, no, obviously they have a lot of influence. So they are throwing instructions. If they have thrown instructions at the palki bearers, what are these women? You know? So they're sort of very quickly, very in an irritated, annoyed fashion, they must be saying. Pattito devahadi devuni padapadmulotuni metta mettaga shankaruni nenmenagandamu mettuni sattu babanga sumunu chandragarnaku pettuni atti moola saramunu haruni shiramuna juttuni chelimido paramesha chandanu jeri sevaru cheyuni solapunanu harushanti kiraga surati chekoni visaruni velaya sahavi bundu chesina vinuti padamulu paadumi. They are asking the Sakhis to sing Sahaji's compositions. Sa vibundu chesina vinuti padamunu paadumi. Please sing them. Velaya sahavi bundu chesina vinuti padamunu paadumi. Alayakanu devadi devuni kanandamu garati kudumi. Anandamu garati kudumi. Anandamu garati kudumi. There is also a song on the food. There are 4 verses full of food that have been described as being offered to them. But now, towards the end of the night, they have gone to the garden, and under a virula chappara, an umbrella, a large place which is covered in flowering creepers, they are resting through the night. So the Sakhis call upon the Grama Devatas, the Dikpalakas, and the people who guard at night, Vinayaka, Dandala Bhairava, Bhadrakali and Ayyanar, to come and protect the space by going around and making sure nothing disturbs. This is also in a very rare raga called Saindhavi. Kanakadri chapuru gauri sametudu yanasi shayanu sukhi puchunadu this we come to the end, and a Mangalam for the Prabandham and for today's event. This is interesting because one line is for Shiva and one line is for Parvati. Ma pali re uniki
Mangalam
I'd just like to introduce Maida.
Please.
So on the veena is Surya, Abhinav, Soumya Jayabharaj, and Abhyay. Soumya is a senior teacher of Carnatic music in Pune, and she's been singing ever since her childhood. And we are Sakhis in our music. These children are from ISER. They're actually training to be scientists and how they sing and play.
You have actually shown us what we are missing out on here in Maharashtra, so thank you so much for such a beautiful presentation and for showing us the brilliance and the legacy of Shahaji-Raga-Lakshnam II. So thank you. I would like to invite on stage Sujita Tai and Jayashree Sawant to felicitate Sushruti ma'am. Supported of Shahaji-Raga. Thank you so much. This has truly been quite a memorable Sunday morning to spend with such brilliant people. What Sushruti ma'am mentioned in her demonstration as well was how these kings thought about how to influence the mindset of a community, and it wasn't just through texts, it wasn't just through information, but it was passed down through the arts. And we have our chief guest and Sushruti ma'am who have contributed so much to both of these fields. So thank you.
थोडंसं मागे आहे ना.
Okay, ready?
रवी आलो
Ready?
नको त्यांना
Hello.
थांबव जरा तुम्ही.
Hold.
झालं. थँक्यू. कट कट करू का सर?
The foundation hopes to host many more of such programs in the future. This was just the first edition of the Krishna Kaveri Samvad program and the very first lecture under the J.Mohite Memorial Lecture Series. So I hope to see you again soon for the next program. And this program wouldn't have been possible without a lot of people who helped the foundation put it together. So I would like to extend the vote of thanks on behalf of Nirmala Mohite Foundation. Our co-sponsors, Maharashtra Cultural Center, in particular Mrs. Damle and Dr. Chaitanya Kunte, for all the arrangements and making this venue available. To our chief guest, Dr. Sucheta Tai, who has come today in spite of her health. Thank you so much for coming. To our speaker, Sushruti Santanam, and her accompanies, such an enlightening and engaging demonstration. Thank you both for keeping Shahaji Maharaj's legacy alive. Thank you so much. Mr. Gitesh Joshi for covering the entire event with videography and live telecast. Thanks to TV9, our media partner, all the volunteers who have come here today to help us, and also the volunteers from Maharashtra Cultural Center. We would like to thank Yashodhan Joshi for assisting with newspaper and media coverage for this event. Mahendra Damle from Mumbai for his valuable support and advice for conducting this program. Suvarnareha Zadav again from Mumbai for her great support and encouragement. And last but not least, our esteemed patron, His Highness Babaji Raje and Gayatri Devi Bhonsle of Thanjavur, as well as Prince Shivaji Raje and Sumitra Raje Bhonsle. And finally, for our rapt audience, we have arranged for snacks for you on the ground floor, so we will see you there. And while we conclude today's lectures that I mentioned before, we will be meeting again very soon for the next series as well. Thank you so much for being here.
ते सर बरं हे ऐक ना पालखीवरची लाईट बंद नको करू हां पालखीची राहून दे मला घ्यायचं आहे शूट कट कट